Wake up, everybody. Today is Thursday, November 5th, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about...
You didn't do the countdown, and I was itching my ear. My finger's really in there.
Who cares?
I don't want people to see that. Okay.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Wake up, everybody. Today is Thursday, November 5th, and we are Never Free to Play, a podcast where we talk about all the video games we wish we were playing. I'm one of your hosts, Karch Paloshti, joined by my co-host, Jason Wright. If you decide you like us and want to help us blame the victims, you can find us at neverfreetoplay.com, patreon.com/neverfreetoplay, or on all the other social media where we are Never Free to Play. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, feedback, please send it to us at neverfreetoplay@gmail.com. Jason, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. It's only been like 4 days since we last recorded. So
Feels like forever, though.
It does.
For many different reasons. Really just one reason, but lots of other ones, too.
Yeah. I just, before we get rolling here, I wanted to give everybody an update on that baked potato. Interesting thing happened. So I turned off the toaster oven, but I left the potato in there. And as it turns out, it just baked itself in there. There's enough heat retention.
Potatoes do what they want, you know? They don't let people tell them what to do. They grow when they shouldn't. They don't grow when they should, and they cause famines. It's a fickle vegetable.
Well, not only that, but they'll grow on themselves if you leave them in the cabinet long enough. That's always weird. So they kind of just have a mind of their own. But
how did it taste?
There's that. How did it taste?
Yeah,
it was pretty good. I'm a guy who likes a pretty rare steak, but I undercooked my steak somehow.
Oh, there was a steak too.
There was a steak to go with that potato, yeah. So I have my cast iron skillet, but I'm kind of relegated to this little stove, like surface glass top. It's not a real stove top. So it's really hard to gauge what the temperature setting needs to be because it does not correlate to what you would think a normal stove would do. There is a point at which it's so hot you'll burn the place down, but like one tick under, apparently you undercooked your steak. So I did all the right things, with the cast iron. I let it heat up till it, got really hot, and you splash a little water on it and it goes shh, and I did 3 minutes aside, and it wasn't even that thick of a steak, but still a little undercooked for me.
Poor workman blames his tools, Jason.
Yeah.
I hate undercooked steak. I hate rare steak. I hate
really?
Medium rare.
Gosh, get out of here.
I don't really go any lower than medium. I'm not a big steak guy. Not that I don't. I love steak. It tastes great. I just don't get it very often. I always find other items appealing for the most part.
I don't know if we can be friends.
Dude, we can't. We're not friends anymore. We're coworkers.
Well done steak.
I didn't say well done. I didn't say well done.
That's what I'm getting the vibe. I'm getting that vibe from you.
I'm gonna make your edits look so bad this week.
You've already made me look so bad last week.
I know. That was just a fun kind of little jab at myself, really. But no, sir, we're gonna really crank it up.
Just try it. I'm gonna be so nice. You're not gonna be able to find mean edits of me.
Challenge accepted.
Okay, let's get into some housekeeping.
Yeah.
Like, sub, follow. Click that subscribe button. It is right under the video. If you happen upon this and you accidentally skip in 3 minutes and you made it past that little banter, and you're hearing me now, then click that button. And, or, if you stumbled across this on a podcast subservice, go ahead and click subscribe. Follow us on Twitter.
Tell us how you found this subservice.
Yeah, that'd be great. That is all the housekeeping we had because we never do anything differently. So let's go on to shout outs. I have a shout out to one Kyle who we scared off. Apparently we loved it too hard. We welcomed him with our arms too open, and this lovely NFR Kyle did not write back in this week. So I think all the attention scared him off. But if you're out there, we'd love to hear from you.
Chewing them up and spitting them out.
That's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
One more shout out. Congrats to Josh and his wife Ann. They just had their third kid. Third. I don't even know, Josh. Tell us, are you excited? Do you even care, or do you just throw them in the pile with the others? I don't know what you do I don't know what you do at 3 kids, but congratulations. Happy for you. Glad you guys are back home and doing well. So
Nice. Congrats.
Corrections, we have none. I deleted the corrections music. Somebody stop me. And that is all of the things that we had to talk about. Let's get into some news.
Let's get into the news. Nintendo boosts forecast 50% in sign of strong gaming demand. This comes from Bloomberg. They write about Nintendo's really good fiscal year so far, thanks in no small part to the coronavirus and all the quarantine nonsense. I'm not going to get into the details of that specific article, but basically, like everybody's known since, I don't know, April, Nintendo's doing great. Like gangbusters. Switches are sold out. Not so much anymore, but they were, and it took them a long time to meet the demand that hasn't died down at all. In addition to that, their best-selling game for the entire console so far is now Animal Crossing, and it's outpacing Zelda, which had done really well. Oh, I'm sorry. I think actually Mario Kart might be doing better. Either way, Animal Crossing is doing amazing. And then it's outpacing Zelda, it's outpacing Mario Odyssey, etc. So, that's good news for now. But as we like to talk and we like to dog on Nintendo, at least on this channel, that's what I like to do. It's one of my favorite pastimes, is to dog on Nintendo. Is this good for consumers? What do you think, Jason?
I don't know that it's good or bad for consumers. I read it. I don't want to dig up the whole article like you said, but I did read into it a bit, and it looks like this is simply an adjustment on their fiscal year guidance for shareholders. So what I imagine is at the beginning of the fiscal year, and I don't know if Nintendo's fiscal year runs concurrent with the calendar year or not. I know some companies do, some companies don't. But if I had to imagine they gave guidance at the beginning of their fiscal year, let's assume it was January, and so everything was normal. They were planning for a normal 2020. I don't know if at any point during the year they adjusted guidance, but then after you see this huge bump in Q2 from Animal Crossing and COVID setting in and people going crazy for Switches and all of that, this is very much, this isn't a forecast. It's a reaction adjusting guidance based on previous performance in the fiscal year, earlier in the fiscal year. So I don't know if this is good or bad for consumers. What do you think? Do you think this is telegraphing something, or you think, what do you think the implication is for consumers?
Yeah, my thoughts on the matter don't revolve so much around this one specific story and all like all the things you said are true as far as it not being a forecast so much as it is like them just kind of reevaluating I guess it is a forecast, reevaluating their projections based on what's happened these last 6 to 9 months. It's more just like the Switch was already doing well, was riding high. It's not seen any sort of downward slope yet, basically. Not any consistent one. And there's already so much I have like a beef with. I love this console so much, and I love a lot of the games that, like Nintendo has definitely put one of their best foots forward. Maybe not their very best foot. In fact, definitely not their very best foot, but this is a really good thing they're doing. And I'm just like, do they know what they did though? Or are we just going to have is this just a fluke? Like, is the Switch good enough in the general public's opinion to continue on, and will Nintendo continue doing this hybrid console? Will they continue to suck at online for no good reason? Will they continue to have some of the worst, practices when it comes to bringing their old games into the modern era, as far as accessibility is concerned for consumers? Like, I am worried that these things will just create a steady as she goes kind of mentality where they don't feel like they have to do anything.
And that does tend to happen, and we've seen it happen with Sony and PlayStation, where you get into a comfortable spot and you get complacent and you're not exactly competing and you're not having to make those consumer-friendly moves, but it ebbs and flows. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. We may get a little bit of complacent Nintendo where they don't feel like, oh, we're doing great. We don't need to bring these older games to the Switch. We don't need to do anything differently with Nintendo Switch Online. We don't need to bolster that infrastructure. But then, on the flip side, you see these things like the cloud versions we talked about getting the cloud version of Hitman 3 coming out. And I'm hoping that that release is day and date with every other console. I don't see why it wouldn't be. Or at least day and date with the other streaming services, when it's available on Luna and Stadia. But so it's interesting to see. It's kind of both sides of the coin. Are they going to continue down that path of getting creative with the hardware that they have and trying to draw more and more developers to it and more of an audience? It will be interesting to see what happens once. Where does the pressure turn up once these new consoles release from Microsoft and Sony? Or, they're always going to be the second console, so they don't really care at all. They don't feel pressure to iterate. They don't feel pressure to do any of that. And even more so with the cloud versions of these third-party games being available. We kind of talked about this a little last week, but it will be interesting to see how that all pans out.
Indeed. I'm tired of this second console mentality that everyone seems to just casually thrust on Nintendo. It doesn't have to be that way. And as a huge global, several $billion-dollar, I think I heard offhand, so please fact check me on this, but don't hold me to it. Most cash or most revenue out of any Japanese company or something like that.
Oh, it was cash on hand.
Cash on hand, which is only one of many signifiers of success, etc. But still, it's nothing to sneeze at to hold that title. And so it's this company. No matter what they say or you think about them, they're not content with that. So let's stop pretending like they don't want to take the world by storm and be at the forefront of everybody's mind. We live in a world where, yes, of course you can have all the consoles. People have more, or at least maybe they don't have more money, but they're certainly putting more money into gaming than they used to, and houses have more consoles than they used to, etc. But like you said, we did belabor some of this last week, so we'll move on. We mentioned it already. Sony getting too big for their britches. PS5 will not support external SSD at launch. What's going on, Sony? Why are you giving all these points to Xbox, who will be supporting that with their proprietary, and there's, slight downside. It is proprietary, but they'll have an option. You want more space? Here it is. A little card, slots right in. There you go.
So this one's a little bit nuanced.
Okay.
Specifically the NVMe SSDs aren't going to work with this, but there's still the external storage. The reason they cited was because they haven't begun or they're not far enough along with their compatibility testing. What they're saying is they want to make sure that if they give the green light to a solid state drive that plugs into that slot, they want to make sure you can get equivalent performance with the internal drive. Mm-hmm. To fully benefit, full power of the PlayStation 5. But you can have a USB drive and store your games on that. And then instead of having to re-download them, let's say you have slow internet, you can move them to the internal drive on the PlayStation itself and work it that way. You're just not going to be able. Yeah.
That's great. And it is. That's really good that they're going to have that. I expected that, and that's not the topic of the article. The article very specifically states, and Sony themselves, that the SSD is not going to be there. Now, point in their favor if they figure it out, because it's not clear to me if their SSD expansion will also be proprietary or not. Because if it's not, that'll be awesome. Then you can buy the cheapest.
I don't think it's supposed to be. I don't think that slot's proprietary.
Okay.
But
that's good.
But like I said, they said that it had to get up to, I think they said 5.5 gigabytes per second speed. Mm-hmm. And they were just saying, and it's got to be PCI 4.0 compatible. So I don't know. Again, there was some speculation that they hadn't even started their compatibility testing, and that's why they're not launching with it. But it's really hard to justify when Xbox is. So
Right. And at the end of the day, this isn't a big deal for me because I don't have a problem. I don't have the fastest internet, but I don't have a cap. At least not an actual cap that would cost me money. You know, I know that they throttle stuff all the time. I don't know how often I meet that, if I ever meet that. I've never really paid that close of attention. I don't download huge games that often, et cetera, et cetera. But I know this is a really big deal to enthusiasts, at least, if not other people in the industry who like to play, you know, funnily enough, like the casuals, quote-unquote casuals, or the once a year or once every other month kind of people who buy only sports games and Call of Duties and the really big stuff. Those games are huge. Those games take up some of the most space out of any games. And
Sure.
it's like the stuff that we play that's sometimes only like 10 gigs big, and that's not a huge deal.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it'll be, I mean, I'm sure they'll get it right at some point. And that's kind of how Sony is with these features. They always launch and it has the capability, but then it's like, how long did it take to get folders on the PS4 home screen? Whereas I think didn't the Vita and the PlayStation 3 have folders by the end of the console cycle?
I don't know. They were already there by the time I got mine on all those
Right.
consoles, basically.
Well, I just know there were features that one generation ended with that didn't necessarily carry over into the next generation for some strange reason, but that's just kind of how Sony is. So
Yeah, and I mean, like, I know software. I know how it works to move on to the next generation of your app. Essentially, you know, we'll simplify it with that phrasing. And parity is difficult. Parity being a fancy word for having all the same stuff you had before. Having parity can be difficult, especially if you want to get it out as fast as possible. I don't know, but Sony's way bigger than my company, and what we've done is totally different from what they're doing. It's a far more lateral move. So,
well, and you'd think the development cycle's so long. I mean, they had to have started planning some of this
immediately,
within a year. Yeah. If not immediately, then at least within a year or so of the PlayStation 4 launch.
All right. All right.
At any rate, yeah.
At any rate, next up we have straight from PlayStation's mouths themselves on the PlayStation blog that launch day sales will be online only this year, so please plan ahead. That is launch day sales for PlayStation 5s themselves. It says Sid Schumann, Senior Director of SIE Content Communications, says, "Hi all. The launch of the PlayStation 5 console on November 12th or 19th, depending on your region, is almost upon us. In the interest of keeping our games, retailers, and staff safe amidst COVID-19, today we are confirming that all day of launch sales will be conducted through the online stores of our retail partners. No units will be available in store for purchase on launch day." And that's pretty much the gist of it. There's more to it, but it's just the fact is that you will not be able to go and wait in line, midnight or otherwise, for your PlayStation 5.
That's kind of a bummer because that was always such an exciting thing about a console launch, even if you pre-ordered it, to wait in that line and get it at midnight. But then, you know, I've been part of the rush to get a console that you didn't pre-order, and that can be exciting too. That Christmas that the Wii came out, I remember my friends and I in high school, or maybe we may have been freshmen in college, but we stood outside of Toys R Us like all night long on winter break and just hung out. And then we went to like a Waffle House later after we had our little voucher, and then we went back. I mean, we stayed up all night. I mean, it's a whole experience. Then, you know, people used to do this for like iPhones and stuff. It makes me wonder if this is just one of the ways the world will change once COVID is over. Like, will we ever go back to the world where you could wait in line at midnight and get one of these consoles? And in some ways, I feel like it's been like this for a while, because I remember trying to get a Switch at launch, and I had no luck within the first couple weeks because I didn't pre-order it. And I snagged one from a GameStop that was a console somebody pre-ordered but didn't pay for, and then they just never came to get it, and I happened to snag it. But yeah, it makes me wonder, like, is this one thing, like, I feel like some things will never go back to the way they were. I think every restaurant's going to have a curbside pickup. Every grocery store is going to have, you know, the same thing, like where you can drive through and they just load your groceries in the back of the car.
For sure.
COVID accelerated all that. I don't think Walmart had it, but Kroger didn't have it. Publix didn't have it. Aldi didn't have it. Now they all do. the pizza guy is just going to drop the pizza on your front porch and text you. That was never a thing pre-COVID. Right. And maybe they take console launches from us too. I don't know. What do you think?
It from us.
And do you even care? That's the other thing.
Do I care? I don't care strongly, unfortunately, in this sense. I have no... I'm planning on getting my PS5 for my birthday in May. Like that, I'm going to budget for that. Like, I don't care if Rachel gets it for me, if I have to buy it for myself. I'm going to have it by May. Like, unless I lose my job. You know, like, that's the only thing that's going to stop me at this point. That way I've got some time in between launch and like the next round of holiday titles, if there are any good ones and they don't get pushed back.
Which makes sense, because of what we know right now in the launch window, there's not a compelling reason to get the PS5. But yeah.
But by May there might be.
Sure.
Oh, May there may be. Ha 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 ha. Ha. Anyway, so, you know, it's like I'm not getting one at launch, so what does it matter? But I will say that if I wanted one, this probably makes it more difficult for, like, let's assume I can't get a pre-order. Or, yeah, let's say I can't get a pre-order.
Because they have been limited, and they often are, even in non-COVID times.
Mm-hmm. Or even within the first 2 weeks, I just can't seem to find one. I have no additional recourse. Like, my first go-to these days would probably be online anyway, just to, like, kind of secure it. I don't like the idea of it being mailed, but that's a whole nother thing. But, like, if I really wanted one, I'm like, oh, man, it's just eating at me. I can't go get, like, basically what you just said, I can't go get lucky at a store. That opportunity just no longer exists. And that's kind of lame, but it's a real small thing, so.
Sure.
Because that's what happened with me with my my SNES Classic. They only had, like, according to the guy, they only had like 4 at the GameStop, and it was Thanksgiving Day. For some reason, they said, "Hey, Thanksgiving." Oh no, it was because it was going to be on Black Friday. That's what it was. But GameStop was open early at like 6 p.m. or something like that, starting their Black Friday stuff. I really wanted to get there as soon as I could because I knew how fast they would go, especially according to the way the classic NESs would go. But I was a good man, good dad, husband, family member. I didn't just bail in the middle or before Thanksgiving dinner or whatever. I stayed and I did all the dishes. And once everything was settled, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go and we're going to see. And I got there and it was there. Like, for some reason, there was just one left. 3 got taken up immediately. It was like the best Thanksgiving little, like, present ever. I was like, oh, and, you know, and those things were like, you take them home and boom, they're immediately play it out of the box, and I had a great time with it.
I honestly can't believe the last few pieces of hardware like that I've tried to buy have been impossible. And not even necessarily in the launch window. Like, I remember trying to get a PSVR well after it came out. And for whatever reason, I had a heck of a time trying to find it anywhere. Ended up having to get it, like, refurbished or pre-owned at GameStop. And that was a nightmare. And I've not bought any hardware from there since. But yeah. The whole thing.
Farewell, midnight releases.
Right.
We knew ye well.
Well, and they started chipping away at it too in the software realm, you know, because you can, and it's so much more convenient to buy a game digitally, preload it onto your console, and then be ready to rock and roll at midnight.
Yep.
Versus, like, I remember I bought, and we talked about this last week, but I bought Diablo 3, a physical copy of the PC version of Diablo 3 from GameStop, midnight release, took it home, had to install the game with the discs, download the patch, yada, 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 all for naught because you couldn't even play the game. But yeah.
So dumb.
So dumb.
So dumb. All right, Jason, go ahead and take us through our last news item.
Okay. Last news item, Fortnite set to return to iPhones via NVIDIA Cloud Gaming Service.
Totally forgot about that whole hullabaloo.
It was a whole thing. Yeah. So I say maybe because if you actually read the article, it says, it pretty much lays out the case for, like, how it's possible, but neither Epic nor NVIDIA will comment on the story. So they reached out for comment, and basically both companies were like, we're not saying anything. But essentially what this is NVIDIA Cloud Gaming, which I'm trying to remember, what's it called again? GeForce Experience, yeah.
Something like
that. So there was an app to where basically you download the app and it streamlined remote play or cloud streaming. So you could link your Steam account, and then anything that you own in your Steam account is available to you streaming via this GeForce experience or whatever it was called. Well, that got taken down swiftly, as did Xbox's attempt at Project X Cloud app on the iPhone, as did Fortnite, all for the same reason, basically. This kind of pissing contest as to, who's going to get that cut of the in the microtransactions. And GeForce made a web-based version of their software that runs in Safari mobile. And you don't need an app to do it, and there's no restriction on that because it's not going through Apple's store. And so the idea is that Fortnite could become compatible with the GeForce now and be on the iPhone again and circumvent like they always wanted. Now, it's not as easy to access, and you kind of have to know about this. But for the hardcores out there that really wanted to have however small that subset is of people who are really upset they can't play Fortnite on their iPhone anymore, this is a possibility. But what I found more interesting about this story is that it kind of opens this gate, because there's speculation that Microsoft is going to do something similar with xCloud. They're going to create this mobile version of it to be able to be on the iPhone. And Amazon Luna has already done that for their beta. So my question to you is, how does Apple respond to these companies circumventing their app store? And do they have any recourse at all? Because it's a possibility that other companies will start doing stuff like this.
Yeah, what is their response? Their response is probably going to be to let it slide, at least for the time being. We'll see how long it takes for them to change their tune, because it's not impossible for them, and probably still not that difficult for them, but it's not as easy for them to just block this thing.
Right.
We're now talking the open World Wide Web, and you can run Chrome on your iPhone.
Right.
Can they
for now,
exactly. And would they be willing to get rid of Chrome just to stop these gaming companies from running their stream? No, I don't think so. So how can you, and how do you stop it from running through Chrome? Safari, sure. I would guarantee they have an easy way to stop that. Otherwise, it's
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because this whole thing, I think, was predicated on who gets what cut. I mean, they can talk about security, blah, 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 all day long, all they want to. I'm not buying it. I think the whole time, all of it was about money.
It was.
And,
it was about money, but it was also very much about a flagrant disregarding of the contract. It wasn't like they didn't say they were going to do it anyway. They just did it. And that was kind of underhanded. And just as far as how we think about fair play, not that there's any such thing amongst these kinds of companies, but
yeah. Well, anyway, something to watch. And if you really wanted to play Fortnite on your iPhone, it may be coming back in some way, shape, or form.
Goody. All right, that does it for the news. All right, now to get into a slightly altered version of a classic segment called Wish You Were Playing, called What's Jason Gonna Buy? We here at Never Free to Play sometimes have money to buy video games, and Jason has that money, and it's burning a hole in his pocket. And we're going to find out how we can waste it as fast as possible on a video game. So, Jason, what's our budget here? What are we working with?
Just let's say the top end of the budget is I can buy one full AAA game if I wanted to.
All right. That opens it up. What kind of systems and consoles are we talking here?
Let's stick to either PC or Switch, because I can remote play from my PC, or I can, just buy it on the Switch. So let's stick to those for this segment.
All right. So what's at the top of your list? What are you feeling?
Oh gosh, it's so hard because, after you finish a really good game and you're just like, that was so good, but I got my fill of it, and I don't want to play any more of that game, but I don't know what I'm in the mood for.
And what game did that to you?
That was Hades.
Yeah.
And now I just don't know, because it's like, I could go and get Foregone, which is reasonably priced. It's on the Switch. It's $30. It looks like a really cool, I won't call it a Dead Cells clone, but it's definitely Dead Cells-esque and in its DNA. And I could get that, but then is it just gonna make me want to play Hades? Because at the end of the day, it's like it's a roguelike that shares similar properties with Hades. I just feel like that's not giving Foregone a fair chance.
I agree.
So I just don't know what I'm in the mood for.
So you got nothing. You got nothing else.
We talked about it a little bit last week. I kind of want a meaty RPG. Like I could really go for an Outer Worlds right now. Maybe meaty is the wrong word because people call the Outer Worlds short, but
I wouldn't call it meaty either. I wouldn't call it short, but I wouldn't call it meaty.
Yeah, I mean, but I could go for something like that where it's like kind of a little bit of action, a little bit of decision based, a little bit of RPG.
Now they have the DLC. You could try that out because you can't play that on Game Pass. You have to buy it.
Ooh.
Although, didn't you play it on Game Pass?
I did play it with Game Pass, but I would imagine my save at least would carry over if that mattered.
True. Yeah, true. All right, so there's
also Grounded, which I can try out on Game Pass.
Right.
Is that still in beta?
Probably still the early access version of it.
Right.
You could just buy Cyberpunk now and have it waiting for you.
No. Although I thought about that. I thought about just being like, okay, well, I just won't really get anything. But then I have a whole month to wait, and I'm stuck in Memphis and with no games to play.
Yeah.
Oh, this is hard. It's a really hard choice.
Yeah, I feel like the more money you have, the harder it gets. I mean, I guess that's kind of obvious.
Because it feels so consequential. Because when's the next time you're going to be able to do that?
Yeah. We've got Horizon Zero Dawn on PC. I know it's a little buggy, but they've been sending out like patches left and right for it. That's only $50.
Okay. I just feel, that's one of those things where it's not worth it to me because if I really wanted to play it, I would wait and get it for like $10 on PS4.
All right, fair enough. Let's see. You could get Baldur's Gate 3. That's a meaty RPG.
That is, but isn't that like 100 hours?
It's not right now because it's in early access and you can't even play the full game. So you could get just the right amount and then maybe even want to come back to it later.
Huh.
And then I could play it too.
25 hours to beat just the early access.
Is it 25 hours?
It says it will reportedly take 25 hours to beat Baldur's Gate 3 early access.
All right, sorry about that, folks. Jason had an important business question call thing because he's an important businessman who takes important business. But I think we left off. We were talking about Baldur's Gate 3 being an actual contender for Jason to buy, which would just send me through the roof because it's hilarious.
Here's the thing. I want to look at some gameplay for this one because hearing you and Sean talk about it, it sounds so intriguing.
Don't
but it
look,
also
just
sounds
buy.
like it could be very tedious to play.
Don't look, just buy. Click, 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 click. Put that CVC code in.
I don't know, man.
Right,
that's a
we'll
contender.
put it on the list.
That's
We'll put it on the
definitely
list.
contender.
We got 4 across Horizon off. We got 3 games, 3 contenders so far.
Okay.
We talked about KOTOR. It's not expensive. You would still have like $50 left over, but you could buy KOTOR.
Okay. Gosh, man. No, how in these games, like, can you play them in a similar fashion to Outer Worlds in the sense that your decisions have consequences and you can...
Oh, yeah. Consider it Skyrim and definitely more Outer Worlds. Consider Outer Worlds or Fallout, but instead of action-based combat, it's turn-based. And, isometric view and all that kind of stuff.
I'd almost be more okay with that because it's less pressure. Like, I like the decision parts of those games and the combat parts stress me out.
Sure. Like, I don't know to the degree so early access and everything. Like, people seem pretty on board, though, with what Larian Studios is doing with Baldur's Gate 3 so far, especially like they know what they're doing when it comes to these things. And, I could personally attest to Divinity 2 having loads of like decisions to make that have immediate and or later consequences. Just every step you take, there's something to find or do or like, fight or whatever. It's just like it's just
in
crazy.
Baldur's Gate. Sell me on it though, 'cause, I mean, I do have some questions. How do you traverse? Like, how does it work? You said isometric. Do you walk around it like Diablo? Like, how does that work?
I don't know. I specifically with Baldur's Gate 3, I can only speak to Divinity 2 because that's the most recent comparison that we can really make. But yeah, you walk around for a while. At least in Divinity, you had fast travel points pretty early on and pretty frequently. So from like you'd have a city or a port, and you'd have one fast travel point there, and then you'd have another one like in the middle of the wilderness, which is kind of like a pseudo dungeon. Then you'd have another one outside an actual dungeon, and so forth and so on. I can't imagine it's too different in Baldur's Gate. Like, you're not going to be walking for hours of real life time or anything like that.
This looks a little bit like Diablo.
It does. It has that exact same kind of view. What is it with you and camera perspectives and equating them to like actual gameplay and game design?
No.
It's
you
nothing
understand.
like
I'm looking. It's not just camera perspective. It's
nothing
the
like
HUD
Diablo.
Looks like it too.
Right, because it was a PC game, and that's how you designed PC RPGs, even if they were action oriented.
Well, I understand that, but this is the third one. This is 2020.
Yeah, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. All right. So you like it. Let's move on, though. Let's get some more games on the list and we come back to it.
Okay.
Is there anything else? Let's go back to the Switch. I think Sean's going to buy Calamity. He's going to buy Hyrule Warriors if you were interested in that. You could buy Pikmin 3. Another 3. No Pikmin 3? Aw, why not?
There's not a game I would buy less than Pikmin 3.
Would you buy The Witcher 3?
I beat it, I'm done with it. I don't go back to games like that.
Okay. Is there any major Nintendo franchise published game on the Switch that you feel like you missed out on?
No. Let's see. I've beaten Odyssey, I've beaten Breath of the Wild. I've at least played Rabbids, like probably halfway through it. I've played Tropic Freeze. Don't care enough about Mario Kart.
But you own all these, or have at some point, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to think of anything that I haven't played.
Right.
No love for Animal Crossing. Don't care about it.
Right.
It's weird in a year where I feel like I missed out on so much. I can't think of anything that I missed out on.
It is kind of mind-boggling.
It's strange. I could go back and like Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I have that on PS. That's a PS4 though. You can't play that on PC.
I know. I mean, I could remote play, but then I have to remote play into mine, sign into your account. It's like a whole thing.
It is.
And I don't think that's going to work as well because my PS4 is not hardwired.
Mm-hmm. There is Doom Eternal. Any interest in that?
No, because I never even finished the first one. I got stuck because the map.
That's not something that should hold you back. It's not that kind of game.
It's too. It's too like for the setup that I have. It'll be too Twitch. Like you have to be fast. You have to. Right. I'm relegated. Like if I get a piece of game, it needs to be more strategic, which is why Baldur's Gate's kind of like in the running. Because I don't think it's going to reduce the experience having to stream it.
You might.
I'm really heavily leaning toward that, man. Just for real.
You're not going to hear me complaining if it is.
But
Persona 4 Golden?
No.
Oh, come on. No. Come on. Oh, a Mass Effect game. You were talking about Mass Effect. Do you want to get any of those?
But Mass Effect is Mass Effect turn-based?
No, it's not. But it's also not like... It's not a twitchy shooter. I mean, you might run into issues. I don't know how well your connection is, but although I do have the first two on Steam, so it would be kind of a waste of a purchase.
So I don't need to buy that to play it.
I've been kind of getting the itch to play them because I listened to a podcast about them. And
was it our podcast?
No, it wasn't. It was the Jared Petty top 100 games of all time.
How you listen to that and you haven't listened to ours? You haven't listened to.
Look, give it was 4 days ago, man. Give me some time. All right? Give me some time. Jerk. Oh, man, I never wrote down the time when we came back. Oh, well.
It's fine. You'll find it wasn't that long. You can just skip ahead.
All right.
Yeah, so right now I'm between here are my top choices.
Okay.
Wait for Cyberpunk, which is the do nothing option, and then just find something else like I can sign into your Steam account on my PC and then stream blah blah blah. So that's like the do nothing option is wait for Cyberpunk 2077. And then there's Baldur's Gate 3. And there was a third option there. What was it? Oh,
well, there was Foregone, sort of maybe, and then there was the Outer Worlds DLC.
Oh,
we're gonna cross that off.
No, those are the 4 options. We'll circle back to it offline.
Okay,
but those are my 4 options.
What do you mean
Those
circle
are
back
good
to?
options.
We're not
Do I
going to make
have
the decision now. You can
I
change your
can
mind
make a
all you
decision
want.
now as long as I'm allowed to change my mind.
Of course, you can always change your mind. But for the viewers, the listeners, they need to know what's Jason going to buy, so they can either be like, yeah, or they can be like, he lied.
Baldur's Gate 3.
Baldur's Gate 3. I'm going to hold you to that.
It looks so.
play it.
That sounds exciting. Plus, there's online multiplayer. Like, that's cool.
Sean's just like, he doesn't know why, but he feels so warm and fuzzy inside right now. He just rolled a D20 inside his heart.
Right.
Or he rolled a natural 20 inside his heart. All right. So that's what we wish we were playing. We all wish we were playing Baldur's Gate 3. Jason's going to buy it, and we're going to play it, and we'll talk about it next week, and it'll be great. Right?
I'm
Right?
really excited.
Sweet.
I mean, the week coming up on the weekend, there's no reason for me not to.
I can't see. And you just had, you got your family all back together. You guys aren't doing much. It sounds perfect.
Well,
Luke
the
can
only
make
thing is, what's the
decisions for
actual
you.
release date?
I don't think it has one yet. I think they're probably like shooting for sometime next year or like late, like next year being almost here, obviously, like probably sometime late 2021.
But wait, so I have to play 25 hours and the progress isn't going to carry over?
No. Okay, so I don't know for sure. The progress won't carry over from this alpha early access to the main release game. I have to imagine that you can continue your progress as they release new builds, but if they don't, I don't know. You'll definitely want to do a little research.
That is the deal breaker.
Ugh. Oh man.
God, I don't want to put 25 hours into a game to not be able to finish it.
Well, that is finishing it. It'd be a form of finishing it.
I'm going to think about it.
You think about it.
Okay, let's move on.
And then you tell me when you buy it.
Okay.
All right, so that was that fun little segment. We actually talked about doing that back when we first started the podcast. This is the first time we've ever actually made good on it. All right, now to talk about what we've actually been playing. Jason, it's been a short time gap between episodes, though. Did you actually play anything?
I gamed one night with Tyler, and we played one mission and him and 2. And I don't want to give out any spoilers. I've talked Hitman 2 to death, but we did have this one really funny moment where your target that you're trying to assassinate is a woman, so you dress up as a tailor and or a seamstress. I don't know which. I guess they call him a tailor. And you have to go and measure her for a dress, and it lets you. It has like these buttons, like these prompts to what you can do. And so I'm the tailor. I go and I get them. Well, actually, Tyler did this. He goes and he picks up the measuring tape off the nightstand or whatever, and you're in like a bedroom, and you can measure her from behind, like you can start measuring her neck, or you can measure her from the front. You can measure her waist. Well, he picked to measure her waist, and as soon as he did that, she starts yelling at him, and like. I don't even understand what's happening at this point. I don't know why she's yelling, but she starts freaking out. So Tyler starts freaking out, and he just like punches her in the face, knocks her out on the ground, and then snaps her neck. But there was like a maid in the room. So So then he starts freaking out, and she starts freaking out and trying to run away. So he goes and chases her down and punches her in the face because we had to drop our gun to get into this section.
I was just
of
saying, is this
map.
the only thing he can do is punch people in the face?
Punch people in the face and snap their neck. Then he like ditches them in this little chest that's just strategically in the room. But it was really funny. If you've ever seen that episode of SpongeBob where he accidentally shrinks everybody,
It's not ringing a bell.
oh, okay. Well, he has it's the episode where he has Merman's belt, and
Yeah.
yeah. And Patrick's like, you have it set to W for Wombo. You need to have it set to.
That's
Anyway.
right.
Well, he shrinks everybody, and then like people come into the room, and he freaks out. He's like, ah, and he shrinks them too. That's basically what Tyler was doing.
That's
like
so
people
funny.
were coming in the room, and he was like, ah, punches them in the face, snaps their neck. Anyway,
Did you
that was
guys
my
make it out?
experience with
Did he
him
make it
and
out
Sue.
alive?
No, he did not. I took
Oh.
over and I showed him how to do it.
Gotcha. You measured her neck first.
No. The problem was the auto save point was after he'd already killed her.
Okay.
So
No harm,
I
no
had
foul.
to, I had to bring it home for us. What I ended up doing is, as soon as I walked out the door, there was a guard. I was able to kill him without anyone noticing, steal his outfit, and then walk right out the front door. It's
Boss.
exhilarating
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
Sounds like a good stream.
Oh, you're right. That would be really fun to stream.
Yeah. Watch a couple of
maybe when I get back
doofuses.
home.
A couple of doofuses screw their way through.
And the problem is
Man
going to
too.
be the language on that stream.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but okay. What about you? What have you been playing?
Same with you. Not much because it's only been a little bit, and I've been pretty busy and tired when the day is over. I only played just a little bit more Wind Waker, but I will say that I'm finally kind of getting back in the groove. I wasn't sure how well the game was going to hold up as I got started, but I got through the second dungeon, and then I got the third MacGuffin gem pearl thing from the fish guy, and I got to visit a lot more islands. And basically, the guardrails that are up really hard at the very beginning, like, which is true for most Zelda games, to be fair. Not that most Zelda games aren't pretty linear. Wind Waker being one of the least linear ones until Breath of the Wild, which is why I think I like it so much, even for a guy who usually likes a linear game. But the guardrails are down, and I can pretty much go wherever I want. I got the bombs, and the bombs finally open up a lot of new places and things to do. And so I just can't wait to get back into it. I want to play some more. And I've still only played with Juliet, though. That's part of the reason I haven't played too much, is that I don't want to play without her yet until she gets bored of it. And once she starts to not care, then I'll just play whenever I want, kind of just knock it all out. I'd learned watching a video, like a retrospective, that there is this sale in the HD remake, which is what I'm playing on the Wii U, an upgrade to your sail that lets you go faster.
Oh,
And
that's
it's-
nice.
Yeah, exactly. Which, because, sailing is kind of slow. If you need to get from one end of the map to the other, a couple islands away, no big deal. A longer trip might take you about 5 minutes or so. And I don't have the little spell thing that lets me teleport. But this upgraded sail will let you go faster, but it also just basically whichever direction you're pointing is where the wind is going. So you don't have to do the little Wind Waker song that makes the wind change, which is really convenient because like that laziness in me will I was like, I could go this way, but then I'd have to pull out the thing and do the 4-second song and listen to the wind. And like, I don't want to do that right now. And so I'll just keep going this way.
Sure.
Like a real sailor.
Did you last week you had mentioned, I can't remember why I explored all these islands and everything. Mm-hmm. Has it opened up? Does it make sense why now?
Sort of. Especially this part I'm about to go to has you go to 3 different places, and there's a lot of not empty, but uncharted space in between. And it's just kind of like, why wouldn't I check out this island? Unless I'm just really in a hurry to go to the story point. So
Sure.
I do. I go
But
chart
you
it
had
at least.
You had mentioned how up to the point you were last week, the game had kind of been pointing you like, go here, go here, go here. And
Right.
that really didn't even give you that opportunity. So that's opened up, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, with it's still got, the characters are still going to not as pestering as Navi, but every now and then they'll be like, hey, don't you think we should go do the thing that's going to save the world? And I'm like, maybe later.
Yeah.
And again, the bombs open up a lot of stuff. You know, there's just rocks everywhere and they're in your way. And like once you get the bombs, it's like, oh, it's not that big a deal. The same thing with like enemies on the sea. I know after you get the Master Sword and you do a couple of things, there's this one, like the final quest chain basically before you go to the like final segment of the game that also kind of forces you to explore. And it's actually far more organic. Like you have to go find the pieces of the Triforce. And I talked about this a little last week, but it's a lot more vague. You know, it is very much a treasure hunt. And, you know, you got a chart. You kind of just have to look at your other map and compare things. And you're like, and then once you get there, there's almost always like a fairly, you know, meaty challenge or puzzle of some kind, like a micro dungeon basically that, you know, you have to overcome in some way. And so I think I had forgotten about that part as well. So, but
that almost sounds like a precursor to the what do you call those things in Breath of the Wild? I can't remember. The shrines, yeah. Mm-hmm. A little bit, yeah. Not too much, but a little bit. Just the idea of a micro dungeon.
Yeah. I think I'm finally done with Hades.
Oh, that's good. You got over it.
I did. Like I was playing it a little bit last night, and I'm aside from when I have moments to play Wind Waker, I don't really know what I want to play. I'm kind of in a mood. You described it earlier because of Hades, but not. My reasoning isn't because of Hades. I just don't want to play Hades anymore. But I'm not sure what I want to play next. I could dive back. Go ahead.
That's me. I'm not sure. It's the same exact thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if I want to dive into Divinity. I don't know if I want to go back to the Mario 3D All-Stars. Or I was talking about Tactics last week, but I still don't think I'm quite in the mood yet. So.
Well, and that's another thing, because I know you have Divinity on a Switch, right? Mm-hmm. Digitally. Because that's something I considered downloading too.
You could try it. I would like for your experience with one of these types of games to be where you should play it. Like, you need to get the proper feel for the game before you start playing on like a foreign control system.
That's the thing I was worried about.
It could kill it for you. If you have a chance of liking it, it'll be on PC. And then if you like it enough, you can try the Switch. Sure. But I would not recommend it first.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, that's it for me. That's all I've been playing.
Okay. Yeah. Good deal.
All right. We're going to switch it up. Oh, you got to go?
No, I got a gripe.
Got a gripe? Oh, you got a gripe.
I got a gripe, man.
Well, easy going, Jason. What's your gripe?
You're going to edit me to be mean, aren't you?
No. Never.
No. Okay, so here's my gripe. I see this all the time, and I know it's marketing, but I don't know why it irks me, but it does. Where it's like, Game X receives massive free update. I don't know why that phrase triggers me so much, but massive free update triggers me so hard because it just like gives this vibe that these like developers are so benevolent and like it's such a selfless act and like take this massive update, this massive free update. But the thing is if it was worth charging for, they'd charge for it. So don't like try to make me feel like you're doing me a favor. That's really all I have to say about it. Do you have any feelings about this, or is it just me?
I mean, you know me. Eat the rich, baby. Like, I hate this kind of stuff. This one thing, I'm not as burning passionate about. I will say I hate fan reactions to things like this more than the thing itself. Like, I hate them gushing about it.
The developers aren't the ones out there saying that it's this massive free update. It's the journalists, it's the Redditors, it's the, like that. Those are the
Twitter.
people.
Yeah, it's like, they didn't have to do this for us. I'm like, come on, guy. Come on. I will say, a counterpoint, though, you said if it was worth paying for, they wouldn't do it. The Ghost of Tsushima update. Do you feel the same about that? Because that, for all intents and purposes, seems like a full-on multiplayer suite for... I guess there's probably skins, if I had to guess, that you can pay for. I don't actually know. But aside from that, it is an utterly free, huge update for like multiplayer to make that game, really worth the purchase.
So I'm not familiar with this, but it sounds like they added a multiplayer mode, and I guess
it's like a different game, though. It's like a completely not. I mean, you're still a samurai doing samurai things, but like it's just like it's like a brand new game.
But that gets into they want the game to have longevity. Mm-hmm. They want people to be talking about it. They want people to be still buying it. They want people to have a reason to still play it. So I don't know. It's like I said, if they thought it was good enough to sell, they'd sell it. If they don't sell it, then there's an ulterior motive. So
always an ulterior motive.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's where I'm getting at it at the end of the day. Not that it's not nice to have, but when these things happen, when they add a new mode, when they add multiplayer, it's not to benefit you. And I guess that's what, like you said, the fan reaction is the part that drives me crazy, because people go like head over heels for it and they just like can't get enough, and all the accolades go to these guys. And I'm just like, I don't know. It gives me this really this like sheeple vibe. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. Not that you shouldn't be excited, but the way they say it, the way they phrase it. And again, I'm going to circle back to massive free update. It makes me so frustrated.
No, I hear you. It's a problem. I think it's like a teeny tiny slice of a lot of the big problem pie with this industry, as far as how we as fans react and how the marketing machine works and all of that. You're going to be getting a lot of this with the Avengers. It finally died down. People aren't talking about it anymore. I don't know. Because right before they stopped talking about it, the last things they were saying was like, oh, it's kind of dying out, at least on PC, I know for sure. I don't know about PS4 and Xbox, but I really think that no cross-play on that game is going to hurt it like a lot.
For sure.
But all of its updates are going to be massively free. You know, that was their promise. And so once the next, character is released, and eventually Spider-Man down the line, et cetera, and so forth, it's like, oh, here's a free thing. Oh, aren't you the best, Avengers? You're the best. Free.
Come talk to me when something like Miles Morales is free. Then you can call that a massive free update. Come talk to me when Infamous Second Son, what was the name of that DLC, the standalone DLC? First Light? Come talk to me when that's free.
I'll tell you what. I will give some praise to the massive free updates from Concerned Ape of Stardew Valley fame, because he's working on 1.5 now, and that game he just keeps throwing stuff at it for fun, because he's got all the money he'll ever personally need at this point, presumably.
And that's the flip side of the coin, because you look at guys like that, and you look at like Hollow Knight, or not Hollow Knight.
Nope, Hollow Knight was one of those two. They both did that. Hollow Knight and Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight more so, though.
Right. I'm just all the things you got for that $20.
Yeah. Of course, whatchamacallit, Yacht Club Games for Shovel Knight, they did technically promise it via Kickstarter. They're just making good on the promise instead of cutting and running, which is very rare too.
Yep. Totally. So, okay. I guess that's case by case like anything else, but just 9 times out of 10,
what's the fun in that?
9 times out of 10, it's a stability update with a 1 game mode or something like that, or some free skins. Like,
for sure,
massive free update. Oh, cool! It's 3 outfits and a death match.
That's
mode
pretty much what happened with Jedi Fallen Order. Got one just like this, like the quote unquote massive free update, when it was really like a boss rush, I think, and then some skins and some arena mode. Like, it was like, this is garbage. Get this.
That's what it is. I literally saw Tony Hawk Pro Skater gets a massive free update. It was 1 mode and some skins. I'm like, get over yourself. I get, I don't know. Just
make me a taco.
We don't have to talk about it anymore. I
don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to talk about some listener questions. That's right. We're doing things a little out of order today. We're going to answer some questions, and then we're going to get into the topic of the week. So, Sean, and only Sean.
Not Kyle.
Hint.
Not Josh. I mean, he gets a break because he had, he brought a new baby home. But
we actually asked him a question, so he needs to answer that question.
True.
All right, but Sean writes in and says, hey, fellas, really enjoyed the discussion last week. He always does. I wish I had as much time to play as Karch. They all do. He's still stuck pretty deep in Tartarus and Tamriel. My question this week is, what level of knowledge do you want to come into a game with? Do you read all the reviews and watch gameplay, or just the trailer? Take care, Sean. Excellent question, Sean.
Love it.
Jason, I'm going to start because this is a case-by-case situation.
Wait,
but let's... I know. I'm kidding. No, I actually don't think it's a case-by-case situation for the most part. I have like a process. It would be very difficult to like detail it or like codify that process, but I do listen and watch and follow up for the most part the same level of like I get the same amount of stuff revealed. I don't ever want anything spoiled. I don't want anything outright spoiled. So that's first and foremost. And we've talked about spoilers before. You can go find that episode where we talk about spoilers. But I will watch, roughly the first 2 trailers. The third trailer is usually kind of a little spoilery or maybe just kind of redundant. And then the 4th trailer is usually egregious in some respect. Either it's like there's absolutely nothing new here, or for some reason, here's the final boss. Like, I'm pretty sure Jedi Fallen Order's TV spot did that. I can't recall, but I remember people being upset about that game in some respect. However, how much do I actually like? I mean, in a perfect world, I'd never know anything about a game, but I would somehow know that I'm going to like that game. But that's impossible.
It's not. That's what I do every time.
No, you don't actually know you're going to like that game, though. You hope you will. You hope you'll like Cyberpunk. All signs point to you liking Cyberpunk.
Exactly.
But you can't know you're going to like Cyberpunk.
But the thing is, okay, I gotta like state my case because
let me finish mine first.
I do think it's a case by case basis.
Of course, it's a case by case.
But the more hyped I am from the general impressions leading up to the game, the less I want to know. And so Cyberpunk's the perfect example of this because I know I like CD Projekt Red. I know I liked The Witcher 3. I
refuse to accept that you like that company. You've literally barreled your way through one of their games. You can't know you like them. I can't stand it.
Okay, then tell me how excited you are for the Hollow Knight sequel.
But I've played through that entire game.
How many Team Cherry games have you played?
It's a sequel. If it was The Witcher 4, I would shut up and I wouldn't say a thing about all these people because, first of all, there are 3 Witcher games, and it makes total sense. This is a direct sequel. It's just more of the exact same game with obviously changes that sequels bring.
Okay,
so
but
I'm stoked for it. I'm not saying I love
developers
CD.
Can have like a DNA to their games that can transcend IP, and everything points to this being an expansion of what, in terms of world building, in terms of combat, in terms of how decisions impact your character's experience in the story. Everything points to that being an iteration of The Witcher 3. I mean, true or false?
True. And for the most part, I'm not as irritated with you because I know you're smart and I know that you can discern these things. There are other people who are making snap knee-jerk reactions that they're going to like this futuristic cyberpunk setting first-person game just because they played The Witcher 3 and they think they love. You don't though. You have no idea what you're talking about. But you obviously do know what you're talking about.
And that's fair. But I guess where I'm getting at with this whole thing, just to get to the root of Sean's question, is I look at the hype for general impressions and how does that correlate to my own taste? And then based on that, will kind of dictate how much I need to know to sell me on the game. Mm-hmm. So because if I don't know if I'm going to like it, obviously I need more information to sell me on the game.
Sure.
But if I'm pretty sure I'm going to like it, then I don't need any. The Last of Us 2, I don't want to see a thing about that game. Like you said, direct sequel from a game that I love. I don't need to see a thing about that game. I know I'm going to love it, period. And I don't want to know anything about it other than Naughty Dog's making it and when is it coming out? And here's my $60, period.
Yep.
And I'm sure there are probably companies and developers and IP that everybody feels like that with. And I would be interested to know from IPs that you love, how much, like Karch, how much do you want to know? Like for Breath of the Wild 2, how much do you want to know?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
You don't want to see? Do you want to see the trailers? Do you want to?
I'll see. I will watch the next trailer because it was just a teaser before. I want to know the general conceit of the game. I want to know the premise. That's fine. I don't want to know. I'm not going to watch a Treehouse live. I'm not going to. I may not even play a demo. You know,
and that's where you and I differ. I don't even want to know the premise. Like, and the same goes for.
It doesn't harm anything. Like, you can't. To me personally, I don't feel like knowing what, because they're gonna do something different. There's going to be a big new thing that's going to set the stage for the rest of the game. Wouldn't it be cool to be surprised by
that when you go to the game, because you know you're going to like it?
That surprise won't last more than 4 seconds, though. And then you might enjoy the thing that they surprised you with, but the surprise specifically, I very much doubt, like that is going to be the thing that you remember. Like, wow, I had no idea. Like, of course you didn't know, and that's all you can say to that fact. What you're really going to remember, though, is how well they executed it.
Well, and I mean, that's true, but you always tread in dangerous waters depending on the game. And we saw this with The Last of Us 2, because I didn't get spoiled by that game because I avoided anything having to do with The Last of Us Part 2, like the plague. Like, I didn't avoid, or I didn't see a single thing prior to playing that game.
I thought you did.
Well, okay, there was one thing I saw that got spoiled in a really, really weird way from a YouTube tag.
I see.
And I didn't even know if it was true or not. But I didn't get spoiled from a random Twitter thread because I was, reading about XYZ in the game from the developers. Like, I didn't get, you know what I mean? I didn't get spoiled from a Reddit thread. I didn't get spoiled from a Twitter thread. I didn't get, from a YouTube comment thread. I didn't see any of the leaked footage. And I don't want to. But what about a game like Diablo 4? Like, how much that's like to me, that's a different beast, because that's a franchise I love from a company that needs to make amends with its fan base.
I mean, Diablo 4 is an example of a game I don't care about at all anymore. Like,
really,
to the point where I don't know if there's I don't know if all the data ahead of time in the world will make me excited. I'm not saying I won't play it, but it won't make me excited to play it.
Would you pay $60 for it?
Well,
I guess that's the question.
I already said, like, I'm not saying I won't play it. And so, yes, at some point I'm going to have to pay for that game, in the next 2 years of its launch. If I want to get it, it'll be $60. Will I buy it? Yes. Then that data will tell me whether or not I'll buy it. But I'm going to take my time with that decision.
Sure.
Speaking of Breath of the Wild, how much of it did you know about the first one?
Almost nothing.
I watched a Let's Play up to like the Grand Plateau. I don't even think I saw him get off of the plateau, and I was like, "Yep, I gotta play that game." That game looked. I mean, it was a Zelda game, so you knew it would probably be good. But I was like, "Man, there is definitely something special about this. This is nothing. We haven't seen this before."
Yeah, no, I didn't know any. I didn't watch a single thing about that or Mario Odyssey. I knew I knew nothing about the Zelda game. I knew Mario Odyssey was kind of in a way a spiritual successor to Mario 64.
Right. So you knew about the cap technique, though, right? You knew the basic principle.
Didn't even know about the cap.
Okay. But okay, so you didn't know about that. How amazing was it when you found out, oh, wow, I capture things. Did you really hold on to that?
No.
Because that's the conceit of the game. Aside from the thing that you already knew without having to know it, which is Mario's going to go through levels and collect, in this case, moons instead of stars. But that was always going to be the thing he did. You knew that. You didn't have to have anybody tell you that. So the conceit was the one thing you would have known that was different about this game was Mario's has a hat that he throws, and like you obviously love that mechanic, and you had an experience with it. But finding out what that experience would be for the rest of the game, that wasn't a moment you're going to cherish.
No, okay, that's true. But you know what is a moment that I cherish is the way that each world felt so different in the art styles, in just the atmosphere.
Sure, that's totally different. Those are spoilers.
But that's what I don't want it. But if you ever watch a trailer like Mario Odyssey, you're always going to see him. Oh, he's running for this world. Then he's running from a T-Rex. He's running through a city that looks like it's got real people.
Memory.
I mean, that's the sort of thing you see in those trailers that I just don't want to see any of that. I want to be, and I was surprised by all that, and I do remember all that.
Sure.
And I do think it would have ruined my experience, not ruined my experience, but diminished my experience knowing that going in that, okay, this is the premise and this is how all the worlds are laid out. And now I know what 5 of the 9 are because I watched that 30-second trailer. Like, I don't want to know any of that.
All right, that's fair. I can't see how 30 seconds can ruin.
I've seen all the assets. I've seen all the art styles. I've seen all the worlds.
Memorized it perfectly.
I've seen the mechanic gimmicks in the world.
All right.
You can glean a lot from that. And now it's
I'm not saying you can't glean, and people do, and they pour over, and that's not, even if you watched it, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't pour over it.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe you would even remember it.
Well, I wouldn't because I didn't see it.
There you go. Can't remember it if you don't watch it.
Well, anyway.
All right. Well, just to wrap up, like, even though I'm kind of taking the opposite side of you in a way, I still enjoy not knowing things too. Like, I didn't know almost anything about Hollow Knight, and I don't know why I wanted to play it so badly. The very little I saw, I was like, I'm sold. I can't wait till this comes to Switch. I did a dance when Reggie announced that it was, Shadow Drop that day on E3. Downloaded it, and it sucked me in. I loved every minute of it. The same with Hades. I had a little bit more knowledge of who Supergiant was, and I did love Bastion, and I kind of liked Pyre, and I was always willing to give it a chance. I just didn't know I was going to love it as much as I did. But that game was out for a full year, and I never watched a single thing about it except for the original opening trailer and then the Switch launch trailer. But I knew I was all in on it. Like I was at least going to buy it day one, that is.
Sure. And that's the flip side, that you're able to look at that and kind of know what you like and what you don't like. Mm-hmm. And that gives you the ability, I have to unfortunately rely on other people's opinions and zeitgeist. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not as cool as you because I can't be, because you're the one that was like, oh yeah, this game. You told me about Forgotten too. Just because you kind of monitor that. I don't have that. I wish I did, but I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Well, you want to stay pure. You can only stay pure by being pure.
Exactly.
All right, Sean, thanks for making us fight, you jerk. All right, now we're going to get into the topic of the week. It is a special topic of the week. We are finally getting around to our spoiler cast within our podcast of The Last of Us Part 2.
Can we call it like a mini spoiler cast? Because okay.
Yeah, it's a mini spoiler cast. It's our thoughts and impressions, but I say spoiler cast because here's your fair warning. This is the last thing we're doing, so if you're listening and you don't want spoilers, just shut the episode off. It's over. Because we're going to spoil it. And we're going to spoil it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
But just in case you haven't turned it off yet, we are about to talk about story spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2. So seriously, if you don't want to hear it, turn this episode off.
Destroyed the flow.
I didn't.
Joel dies within the first 2 hours.
Come on, dude. That felt abrupt even for me, and I knew what happened.
It's happening all over again.
Oh, no.
So we'll get to that in a second.
A second?
You got a second, yeah.
Okay.
So, Jason, you got us a nice little outline here with some questions. So
I do.
What did you think of it overall?
Oh, so you're going to flip the script on me. I wrote down the questions, so then you're going to ask me all the questions that I wrote down.
Do you want to run the show? Is that what's going on?
No, I don't care. I'll talk about it. What did I think about it overall? So I have here what's my rating on the Karch scale, but then your scale keeps changing. I'm going to go...
No, it doesn't change.
Oh, this is so hard. I think the last...
Is it perfect?
No, it's not. See, that's what I was going to say.
Bad?
I think on the Karch scale, The Last of Us Part 1 I would put as perfect, and this I would put as one step below that with a lot of flickers of perfect.
Really? That's interesting. We've talked about this at length at this point. I would have never guessed you'd still be that glowing about it. Anyway, that's a great on my scale.
Yeah, I'd say it's great with flickers of perfection. Like, if I was going to do this on the IGN scale, I'd probably give it a 9.5.
Mm-hmm. I want to say that I would give it a very solid great.
Very solid great. So what's that? It's like 9 and 8.5?
I don't want to bring numbers into it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm just bringing numbers into it.
Then why even have the scale?
The scale is just a way to describe it without stupid BS numbers.
So then let's talk. Can we talk about this high level? Like, what were the things that you were impressed with, and then where were the? I won't call them flaws, but where did you see room for improvement? If we can keep it kind of high level.
I was impressed with, what they did. They made some bold decisions narratively. They killed off Joel very early on, and then they later, halfway through, take away your control over Ellie and give you over to Abby, who is Joel's killer. And then you have to play as her for the rest of the game and do the same kinds of unspeakable things that Abby does, but you have to do them to people that, well, not really. That's the thing. You don't really have to do anything unspeakable, really, as Abby until it's time to fight Ellie on those two occasions.
Well, so I don't know if I agree with that.
Which part?
That you don't have to do anything unspeakable?
I meant, okay, let me clarify. Unspeakable in the sense that, like, Abby kills Joel, but she isn't spending the rest of the game also killing all your other friends and compadres from the first game,
but she's killing all the scars.
That's fine, but you don't know who the scars are. You have no connection. Yes, as far as like a general morality sense, she's a murderer and a warrior and a beast of a fighter, etc. But I'm saying like there's a touchstone with Joel. She didn't go back to get Tommy too,
right?
Until she does.
So in the universe, from the perspective of we think we know who the heroes are and who the bad guys are, and you go into that more aligned with Tommy and Joel and Ellie.
Mm-hmm. And so that's good. That was a good thing I liked about it. It was bold, and the story overall is fairly well told. There are dips here and there, and I don't know if we'll be able to even get into them in this mini cast, but big detractor's too long. Game's too long.
Yeah, that was my one knock against it. It was a little long in the tooth.
And starting over from scratch as Abby, as far as like your upgrade tree, that was a mistake. I don't know what I would have done instead, but that was a mistake. I don't think it was the right decision.
Honestly, that didn't really bother me as much as the fact that I had to play with Abby, because I found myself wanting to get through those parts and hoping that I got back to Ellie, because I could never get over Abby killing Joel, and I didn't want to play as her, and I didn't want to be her. And as much as they tried to make her this hero or flip the script on you and not necessarily make her the good guy, but make you think everyone's the bad guy, I never got over my loyalty to Joel from the first game, and that's just it. Like, to me, Joel and Ellie are the good guys, and everybody else that opposes them are the bad guys, and that was Abby. And I don't care if we killed her dad, and I don't care if we ruined her life, and I don't care if we took down the Fireflies, and I don't care if we ruined the world and stole the cure from everybody. Joel and Ellie are the good guys, and everyone else is the bad guy, period. That's where my allegiances are, and I don't want to spend 15 hours of a 25-hour game playing as someone I don't like. That's my major knock on the game.
So I feel about half of that, and about half of it I don't. I actually in a vacuum, I like Abby as a character. I liked the performance. I liked her motivations. Totally. I like the way she plays. I actually prefer her kit and playstyle more than Ellie's. I don't like Ellie's playstyle.
In a vacuum, I like it too.
Yeah. I also could not care less about the fact that we killed her Dr. Dad, who had one goal, which was to try to save humanity in a desperate and what I would, in my personal opinion, was a futile attempt to go ahead and try to get that vaccine through. Even in a post-COVID world. I don't care.
Yeah, it's annoying that they retconned it to be like, no, you don't understand.
Right.
It definitely would have worked. And we're
Right.
like, well, you're not conveying
Well,
that
they're not
to me.
retconning
The
it.
first
They've
game,
always said that. I just still don't agree with it. That's not how I interpret it. I don't think it's possible. And I don't think even if it was that it would have changed anything.
well, not to mention that they didn't really make that clear in the game. They just
No,
said
they
it
didn't.
after the fact.
Right. And I also love Joel. I don't think he was a bad person by this world standards or really necessarily our, like the comfy world we live in standards.
Yeah, somebody steals your daughter figure, then you murder everyone in the building. Period. I don't give a shit. I don't care.
Yeah. I did come to let's see. I liked Abby by the end in the context of the game. It's not that I understood her and felt bad for her, like, oh, her dad and all that stuff, but like this is dog eat dog. Ellie, you got yours. Because it's just how it goes. This is the world we live in now. And it's okay that she did these things because it's okay that you did the things that you did.
Right. But then by that same logic, it's okay that she came back to kill Abby.
It is.
And
I mean,
that's the other thing is I don't understand why she didn't, and I really wanted to. And
I
it
do
was
understand
funny
why she did.
because you heard
I mean, how is it?
these people
I thought it was
say,
really obvious.
Say again?
I thought it was obvious why she didn't.
Well, let's talk about that in a second because I just want to say this. Maybe this makes me a terrible person, but I remember all of the people reviewing this game were like, at the end, at the fight with Ellie and Abby, when you have to hold her under the water, like, I didn't want to do it. Maybe I'm crazy. I did want to do it. I wanted to kill Abby. I came all that way. I went through all that crap. I ruined my relationship with Dina. I wanted to kill Abby. I wanted to kill her. And I know Naughty Dog isn't the type of game. They don't make the game where you get to make a choice. But if they did, I would have killed Abby.
Yeah, everybody's on both sides of the fence. Probably more people on Ellie's side. But, a lot of people, like, they would let, depending on who you were controlling, like at one point there is a showdown near the end of the game where you play as Abby and you fight Ellie. And
I didn't want to do that fight.
Yeah, a lot of people I just let Ellie kill her several times and I got my jollies off on that. I was like, well, I feel like you're a little petulant. Let's let the story play out the way it's supposed to.
I didn't do that because I was tired of the game at that point.
But there were other people who didn't want. They weren't before they realized how it played out. They didn't want Ellie to kill Abby, and so they would let the same on the flip side. People who were not on Ellie's side anymore or never were let Abby kill her in the end because that if you don't do anything, Abby will kill Ellie obviously, and it's game over. So
that'd be funny if how in Persona, is it 4 or 5, they lock you out of certain content if you make certain decisions. You can be locked out of like a 5-hour chunk of the game.
Yeah, all of them do that. So
they should do that. They should have done that in this game. Like if you're going to be that dumb and let one of them kill the other, then the game is over.
That would be funny. Oh, credits roll. I mean, that's kind of like a pseudo end because it just reloads back right before that. It's just like a game over with credits instead of a game over. But
really,
it is interesting. But no, I'm just saying like that's all that you would really end up doing. You'd just be adding a credit sequence to a game over.
Yeah.
Rather than saying this is the end of the story.
Well, here's the other thing. On the same topic, and if you want to circle back to that whole dynamic with Abby and Ellie, that's fine. But I was just going to say this in terms of it being too long. Mm-hmm. I found myself disliking every single zombie sequence, every single time you had to encounter. I just was like, I don't want to do this. I want to get to that next story beat. And not that I want to rush through it, but I found the encounters with humans so much more interesting because the ones with the, what do they even call them in this universe? I don't even remember. They don't call them biters. What do they call them? Walkers.
Crap. I can't remember.
Well, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're see this is the worst spoiler cast ever. I found every encounter with the undead just to be totally dissatisfying, and the way that it worked with the humans is they gave you this giant sandbox and all these little here's a little area you can hide out in. Here's a little place where you can get this weapon. Here's a place where you can be a little more stealthy and you can, you could really strategize and play with it and counter it and approach it multiple different ways. The zombie encounters felt like they had one way in mind.
They
and
did.
you had to do it that way.
Yeah.
And
they're
really
infrequent. Like, they could have cut them. It wasn't
Right.
necessary.
The only one that was like interesting enough to keep in my mind was that traversal through the hotel.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah.
And on the opposite end of that spectrum was the traversal through the basement of the hospital.
Oh
which
my
ends
gosh.
in the world's worst boss fight of
Yes.
all time.
Get out of here, man.
Apparently he's called the Rat King. And it's as Resident Evil as it gets. He's this super amalgamated version. Like, it's clickers and infected, by the way. It's infected is like the blanket term, and
Okay,
then
there you
clickers are like the more, like the really infected. And they have
That's
like
right.
the shamblers and all this stuff. Anyway, this giant, like 7 body fused together zombie guy comes at you, and it's nothing like anything you fought before or will fight since. It's a tight space with almost nowhere to go, which is just not what that game does. It's reminiscent of the fight with David in the first one, but like terrible. Just terrible.
And the
I hated
autosave
it.
points can really screw you.
Yes, they can.
Because if you save at a point where you've picked up a couple of weapons and ammo and you've exhausted that, but you haven't killed the thing, like, this was the point of the game. To that point of the game, I was playing on the normal difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
At that point of the game, I dropped it to the easiest on not like the easiest combat, just the easiest on everything. And I just like finished the game like that because I was done at that point. Like, I was so done at that point. I was done with the rug pulls. I was done with all of it. I was just like, I just want to see how the story ends. The gameplay at this point isn't my motivation for continuing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Speaking
why I
of-
say it was great, but not perfect. The pacing.
Pacing's important. Speaking of the gameplay, though, not a lot changes. There's a little, there's the progression is probably the biggest change. Like the actual gameplay itself, a couple of new different kinds of weapons, maybe crafting's a little updated, but like the way that you could apply skill points, essentially, for lack of a better, for a simplistic term, was definitely where I saw the most change. How did you feel about combat and mechanics and gameplay in general?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, especially and I think we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about our early impressions of the game, but especially when the melee combat, I think it was so much better than the first one.
For sure.
So much more fluid. It felt good. It was more usable.
It was an option. It just wasn't an option in the first game. Like, you had a bat with a nail in it, and you got 3 swings, and that was about it. But you could pick up some really meaty weapons that would last quite a few swings with this one. You could repair them, essentially. I loved melee combat in this.
I did too. I preferred it when I could because that was the component of the stealth. Keeping stealth was being able to utilize the melee. And again, I think it goes hand in hand with the design of the environments and the way they put you into these little arena sandboxes for these encounters, because you really were kind of confined to this almost like a level in a way during these encounters because of the way they were structured. And you could find yourself, navigate yourself out of a lot of them without necessarily defeating or killing every single enemy. But at the same time, it gave you these options that you could, truly, there's no better way to describe it other than sandbox. It was just the way they designed it and the way they said, go have fun. Here are your toys. Go have fun. And it truly was a lot of fun in those encounters. I loved the way they did that. Now, again, I want to circle back and say, the encounters with for as much as they improved the melee combat, I feel like they didn't really give you that advantage when you were encountering infected.
Yeah, they wanted you to know, like, aside from like the barely infected, that these just you can't take them down very easily. But yeah, it's silly.
And so that frustrated me because I was so used to these really fun strategic encounters. But then every time I came across infected, it was a smaller area. You were a lot more prone to be discovered by more infected who would then like bum rush you. And then you're either going to run or you're going to die most of the time. And it's
They're
just
also
go ahead.
They're also really erratic. Like, even though you know the rules they play by, I still felt like I wasn't sure. I never understood them. Like, I didn't know what they might do or how I might mitigate being caught or stuff like that. Where with humans, it was a lot easier to know, like, okay, well, I got way in over my head. That's not going to work. Whereas the infected's like, that might have been my fault. It might not have been. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I agree. And like, even when they had dogs tracking you, they gave you mechanics that helped you navigate that encounter because you could see the scent path. And did I run far enough away to get away from the dog being able to smell me? And okay, now this person's on the lookout for me versus like this one infected found me. I shot it. Now I've alerted every freaking enemy on the map and I'm going to be overwhelmed here in a second.
Yep. Yep.
So that's kind of that was my one. All my I don't want to call it it's my criticism. All my criticism of the game kind of stems from that same gripe, I guess.
I do like and we've talked about this before, but they bring a little Uncharted into it. They bring a lot more. There was a few of these, but really not too many. It was a far more subdued game, but they bring a lot more action pieces into it. Most notably, you meet up with a character named Jesse while you're out and about trying to hunt down Joel's murderers. And there's this big car chase sequence, essentially, where you're running through or driving through, trying to avoid, hunters and other probably wolves. The wolf.
It's very cinematic.
Front. Yeah, and it's very cinematic, but it's still very, very involved. Like, you're still shooting stuff. I don't know how much of it's even necessary, like, because you don't stop to think too much unless you're really trying to figure out the ins and outs of the game.
Right.
But it feels good. I felt in place. It didn't feel out of place, and it was fun. It's memorable. It
totally
does exactly what I feel like they were trying to do with that.
And the same goes for when you're Abby and you're out on patrol with Wolf and you get overwhelmed by the scars and you're trying to get away from them and then you crash into the building and you get kind of cornered into the warehouse or whatever. Same kind of thing.
Agreed.
So
all right, let's get back to story.
Yeah, let's get back to story. Go ahead.
So let's I'm going to try to do as quick a recap as I can here.
Good luck.
So I'm going to pretend like everybody knows how The Last of Us 1 ends. They get to Jackson, which is a place in Wyoming, right? Wyoming?
Why would you quiz me on the state? I don't know. It's one of those stupid states that don't matter.
It's Jackson, Wyoming. And Tommy's there with his wife, who you meet in the first game. And we are now 4 years later. Is that right? Is that where it picks up?
Let's say yes, because
so about
4 years later.
Yep. About 4 years later. For some reason, you don't know why, Ellie and Joel are kind of on the outs. I mean, you kind of know why. You can suspect. You'll find out later. And you go out on patrol with your friend Dina, who ends up being more than a friend, and Ellie and Dina start a relationship.
Very hot scene.
Shut up. Then
Choit
later,
like a chwaiga.
What?
I just choit like a chwaiga.
Choit like a choiga.
Yeah.
And then later you play as this other character named Abby. You have no idea who she is. You have no idea what she's doing. She has her own little group. And then it turns out they're kind of spying on this camp. And they don't seem like they're there to help or join. They seem like they want to find somebody. Who is that somebody? Well, Abby runs into Joel and Tommy while they're out on patrol. And they run into a horde of infected. And Abby helps them escape. Well, they kind of, it's a mutual thing. Like they find Abby and they help her as she's running, and then they all have to run together. And she's like, I know a way. And they go to this mansion, abandoned mansion off, on the cliff outside of town that Joel and Tommy know of, and that Abby's group is at. They get there, and it's this kind of like really tense, awkward scene And he's like, oh, I kind of get the feeling that you know us already. And it's like, and we do. And then they like they shoot Tommy's leg and then they knock Joel out, and the scene ends there. You take control back of Ellie, who finds out through this guy named Jesse, a friend of hers, former boyfriend, lover, whatever entanglement of Dina's. And so Ellie's like, I gotta go find him. And she goes and finds him. And she finds him just in time to witness the very end of his life as Abby is beating him with a golf club. And I think his knees have been, shot with a shotgun. He's in a miserable state. He can't talk. He doesn't even really know what's going on. You don't really know what's going on yet either. These people hate Joel, and they want him dead. Tommy's still fine. They capture Ellie. She gets caught, and they pin her to the ground, and her face is just staring at Joel, and he's just barely hanging on to life. She's screaming. It's very emotional. And then one of them's like, let's just end it. Abby drives the golf club into Joel's head, and that's the end. Very sad scene. They knock Ellie out, and she wakes up later. They left her alone. They spared her. They spared her and Tommy. They had a mission. They had their grudge, and they fulfilled it, and they left, to their credit.
And that was Abby's call, or was it?
I think it was a mutual thing. There was probably a couple of people in Abby's group that would have been fine murdering them. Mm-hmm. There were people who were definitely just not fine doing any of it, and then there were the majority, I think, who were somewhere in between. Because they all had a stake. These are former Fireflies. Everybody who's doing this, as you'll find out, is a former Firefly, and thus is very upset with Joel for killing, presumably the most. It's hard to say narratively how many people he actually killed. He kills the doctors and the nurses in that one room at the end, and obviously he had to kill a few people on his way out. But did he kill every last one of their forces? Almost certainly not. Anyway, Ellie's pissed. She wants revenge, but Tommy's wife, I forget her name, let's call her Sarah. Sarah says, no, we're not doing this. I control this town. I control you. This is a bad idea, or we're going to do it the right way. We're not heading out in the middle of winter, whatever. All this jargon. Oh, it turns out Tommy's left. And now we got to go save Tommy. So we're not really on a revenge quest. We're on a quest to go save Tommy from his stupidity. So they have to head all the way over to Washington State. Is that where they go?
Yeah, I think they're going
Seattle.
to Seattle.
They go to Seattle. That's right. So they head to Seattle, where the Washington Liberation Front or something like that is, and they nickname themselves the Wolves, basically, because the acronym is like WLF, and that sounds kind of like wolf, and it's it's cute. And so you spend the rest of the game as the first entire half of the game as Ellie. Dina tags along, so it's like a buddy romance cop movie thing too. Under the premise that you're looking for Tommy, and you are looking for clues of him, you find clues of him, but hey, it'd be really cool because Tommy's doing this too. He is hunting the people who killed Joel, might as well hunt those people too. And so you're picking up leads of the group that Abby was with,
in hopes that you're going to find Tommy. Yeah,
and exactly. And then if you kill the guys who killed Joel, well, what a bonus that would be.
Sure.
You make a camp in a theater that becomes home base, basically. You keep returning to that several times. At some point, you find out that Dina's pregnant with her boyfriend, obviously, not Ellie. Ellie is not a man. And so that adds this weird layer of complexity. I always thought that was kind of strange.
Well,
it serves a purpose later when the baby's born and they have their little family moment.
Well, it also serves a purpose to get Ellie alone in the levels.
True. Very good. Very good.
Because they could leave Dina at the theater for some of it.
Yeah. Jesse does show up. He chases them, and he shows up about halfway through the little adventure.
That's Dina's boyfriend.
Yes, Dina's boyfriend.
Yeah,
the father of her unborn child. And then slowly but surely, through various outings, it's pretty clear that Ellie is, sure, she's looking for Tommy, but that's not her main goal. She doesn't care if she finds him as much as she cares about finding whoever did it. Eventually, she gets a few names, and she finds out about this Abby character. I don't remember exactly when and how that works, but at some point, she knows she's looking for somebody named Abby. At one point, Ellie tortures somebody. You don't have to do the torturing, but it's a pretty harrowing scene where, after a huge altercation in the hospital, where they're clearing all the stuff out, getting a bunch of the medications and all the supplies that they can, because it is overrun with infected in various parts, and they just want to get out with all their stuff, and they're preparing for some kind of war. You're not sure what that's about yet. and then but she tracks down one of the people that were there. She
It's
runs
Nora.
her through.
Nora.
Correct. Her name is Nora. She runs her through the basement of the hospital,
which is pretty intense because what ends up happening is you run Nora into this area with the what do you call it? It's not like gas, but it's like the fumes from the infected spores. You run her into the spores. She knows she's dead, essentially.
Yeah, basically.
But then you proceed off camera to torture Nora into giving you more information.
Yeah. So what happens is you corner her. And like you said, she knows she's dead. She realizes who Ellie is because everybody knew about the girl who was immune. And she's like, we gave you a second chance. Like, she's like, I can't believe you came after us after we let you live. And then you have this moment, and it's one of my favorite moments in the game, not because you press the button, because you do. Ellie's facing her. The camera's facing Ellie. And so, it's just this tense moment. She's got like a lead pipe, and she's facing Nora. You don't see Nora anymore. And then the scene continues, but it basically stalls, and there's a button prompt to swing the pipe and hit her. And I think you do that 2 more times before the scene takes over, and then very, very quickly, after it just takes over, it cuts to black. It's not particularly gratuitous. You don't see anything. You don't see or hear the questions during the interrogation, but it does make you press the button, and that is powerful. But what's more powerful to me is like that is the point of no return for her, in my opinion. And you see it in her face. You see how much she really doesn't want to do it, but she also knows that she's gonna because she feels like she has to. And I feel like it was an amazing feat on their part to convey that emotion through the character model for the actor to obviously have done their part. Because there's no talking; it's all facial stuff. It's the eyes of this video game character conveying this to me. At least that's how I felt. So I do really like that scene. Maybe not for the reasons other people might, though.
And then when it cuts to black, you come back and you come into the theater.
Yep, you're back at the theater. You talk to Dina. You kind of have like you've already got some PTSD going on. You're racked with PTSD, but even this is now weighing on top of you. And it just Dina has a kind of like, just come here and I'll take care of you moment. Is that the final thing that happened? No. You eventually find out where Abby is. She's on some little islandy thing. Some aquarium is on that island. You go there looking for her. She's not there, but there are 2 other people there. You have an altercation. Ellie's trying to get the information out of them where Abby is. And then there's an altercation and you accidentally stab one guy.
Accidentally on purpose, yeah.
Accidentally on purpose stab one guy.
She tries to use a technique that she learned from Joel, and she kind of butchers it and ends up killing both of these people.
Yeah, because these people aren't, they're pros at this stuff too.
Right.
One of them turns out, though, to be pregnant, and she finds out after the fact, and she's somewhat disgusted with herself, and then she leaves. And when she returns to the theater, she has found Tommy at this point, or Jesse's found, because at some point, Jesse's like, she has a talk with him, and he's like, what are you doing this for? And she's like, she can't say it out loud, but he's like, okay, well, I'm going to go find Tommy, you do whatever you're going to do. He's a little upset with her, but he also still sort of understands. So she gets back to the theater. Jesse's there. Tommy's there. Dina's there. Tommy's like, I killed a bunch of them. I think it's time to go home. So they start making plans to leave. You hear, though, an altercation. You hear some noises, maybe some gunshots. I can't remember. Jesse and Ellie run out from their backstage in the back of the theater. They're running out to like this kind of lobby area. As they turn a corner, boom. Bullet right through Jesse's head. He's done. He's gone.
That was intense.
It was incredibly intense. Yep. Abby is there. She's got Tommy pinned to the ground. She's got a gun on him. Ellie's like hiding behind a bar, and she comes out, and she's like, "You want me?" Blah blah blah. She's like, and Abby says similar things to what Nora says. Like, we gave you a second chance, and you just threw it away. She's furious. This is the first time you've seen her character since you played as her, or rather, since you saw her kill Joel. And then she knocks Ellie out. And then you go back in time 3 days to the same point, basically, where Ellie gets to Seattle. But now you're playing Abby.
Well, you skipped a little flashback where Abby and her dad are in the forest. But yeah, then...
I skipped a lot of flashbacks. This whole time, there are flashbacks detailing to you what's been going on with Ellie and Joel, which are really important, and I'm sorry that I skipped them.
It's fine. Just keep going, because this is a mini spoiler cast.
Anyway, you find out why... I will say why. You find out why she hates Joel. She hates Joel because... she finds out that he took the choice away from her, except she never had a choice, and that's stupid, but she's still mad at him anyway. And that's why she's not really on speaking terms. It's why it makes his premature death all the more harrowing, because they never got to make up.
Right. And
she's feeling really guilty.
Find out that Abby's dad was the doctor who was going to perform the surgery on Ellie that was supposed to find the cure, but then Joel killed everybody.
Yeah. And she spent the next, 4 years of her life just kind of, they made their way west. They met up with the wolves, but she never lost, she was having her own nightmares, her own PTSD of finding her dad dead and watching like her life crumble around her and everything from some random people, essentially. And eventually she takes her team of former Fireflies. They go and do that hit, and they come back, and you basically pick up at that point. They've now been back probably a couple weeks, however long it took Ellie and Dina to get to Seattle in the first place. And then you start living her life, and it turns out there's this other faction of people in Seattle who are kind of crazy religious zealots. You don't ever get a really strong background of what their religion is or how it came to be, but you know that they had some leader who ended up becoming a martyr for them, who they now basically worship as a prophet of sorts, near deification. They never actually talk about any kind of true God per se, but basically they're nutters. They're nutters, and they...
It's a cult.
Yeah, it's a cult. They want to live...
wrong.
Very wrong. Very wrong. Because cults usually go great.
Yeah.
But they're constantly clashing with the wolves. They just don't get along. They're vying for territory. They're vying for, the stability of their people. And it's that classic story of us versus them. But now instead of monsters and people, it's just people and people, like it always seems to boil down to. And so you just kind of go through the motions. I feel like the first few days with Abby are really dull until you get captured by some scars and you get hung up. And it's that infamous scene where they first revealed the game at E3 back in, 2016 now, I think it was, where Abby's getting hung. You don't know who she is at the time. She gets saved by this girl and her sister, or her brother, with a bow, and you're like, who are these characters? You don't know who they are. At this point, they are scars, but they're definitely not on the same side as the other ones. There's some sort of rift going on between them. They save you. And one of my other favorite moments of the game, when Abby stands up and picks that hammer up and is like, all right, I'm free. I'm ready to do some damage. And you do. It's a really cool scene where you run away through the dark. There are infected all over the place. You're being chased by scars. It's very action-packed and very tense and very fun. Anyway, they save you. Her arm, one of the scars' arms is broken, and like Abby, who can't stand the scars because, again, it's just an us versus them thing, pities them, gives them the, this reprieve, and doesn't murder them because they saved her life. But then she leaves them, goes and meets up with her ex-boyfriend Owen, who's that guy that Ellie killed earlier, and then she's having nightmares about those people, or those kids. She goes back to him, and then basically Abby becomes Joel from the first game in the most manipulative sense, or manipulative tactic in the game so far, to make you like Abby. And I still don't know how I feel about that. How do you feel about them trying to basically replicate the first game's sense of like protector, guardian, ward when it comes to...
I didn't even think about that, the way they mirrored it, until you said that.
That's interesting.
I knew that, but I didn't think about the mirror aspect of it. And to be honest with you, I listened to 2 spoiler casts maybe on this, and I don't think anyone mentioned that. But it's
I guarantee they did.
Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But the point is, I still got that sense that they were really trying to make you like Abby.
Yeah.
Because they showed you her humanity, but in such a forced way. Yeah. That I was just like, I think that's what turned me off to, like, I don't care what you show me because you've already shown me that she killed Joel, who I consider to be the good guy.
Pretty much.
And that makes you the bad guy.
So you spend a lot of time with these kids.
Yeah.
One's potentially an adult, like a very young adult, and the other's clearly like,
An
middle teens.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, adolescent. The adolescent is... And I don't know that there's a trans character.
She's transgendered.
Who identifies
She's a
as male.
female who identifies as male.
Right. So how are the proper phrasing of this?
I think it's transgendered.
It is transgender, but is it trans male or trans female? I'm pretty sure it's trans male. I think you.
I don't know.
I don't want to get into it because again, I don't want to mess it up. But I will say factually, this person identifies.
The point
as a man.
is that it's not accepted by the by the scars. I don't remember. I don't even remember what their proper name is.
Seraphites.
Yeah.
They call themselves the Seraphites, and yes, as you
the
might
wolves
guess,
call them the scars. It's a slur.
Right.
I call them the scars too because they're definitely, without a doubt, the most bad guys in the whole thing.
And the Reavers at the end are, but those are bad.
Well,
badly written.
Come on,
they're badly written. I'm just yeah. There are a few, like, you're supposed to kind of get but some of them are not bad. I'm like, well, yeah. If there's two, there's more, but none of them are defecting. At the end of the day, they're still making their choice to stick with their heinous cult. Who, I mean, and it's really I don't like it. I don't like it when they handle religion like this in games. It's always so it's only bad. It can only ever be bad. And they don't actually tell you why it's bad until the very end, and you have to read these documents to say, okay, now I get it. Now I do get the things they've been doing, but you don't know why they're so bad, aside from the fact that they do want to kill this person because they refuse to hide who they were anymore. And then his sister, couldn't bring herself to side with her family and her cult and, her community. And so she ran away with him. Anyway, he spent a lot of time with these kids. And again, it just feels like too long. It feels like too long to spend all this time with them. At one point, you go back to this little island that they all live on because Lem, the boy, he wants to confront his mother, who is very, very devout. And then they get into an altercation. Not like a super lethal one, but what happens is she does fall and hit her head and dies.
That sounds super lethal, Karch.
Well, I meant it wasn't obvious that either one was trying to kill. There was an altercation, but that doesn't mean the mother was trying to kill him, and he certainly wasn't trying to kill her. But that is what happens.
Sure.
Unintentional. It's manslaughter.
You spent so much time because you just skipped so much of the game where you're traversing with Lem or Yara.
But it's all just serves the singular purpose of humanizing. Assuming you need to humanize Abby, if you still think she's a demon who was sent to kill Joel,
which I do,
which you do, and so for some people it didn't work. But the entire time is spent basically trying to show Abby's progression, maybe they're not so bad. But again, it's only the two because the wolves descend on the island, and everybody just kind of kills each other. The scars are fighting them. You escape. Lem's sister Yara dies. In a really cool way where she takes out the leader of the wolves because he's crazy too, basically, with not crazy, but he's just so focused on eliminating this entire people to
Which
save
again,
his
we
own.
Don't really know why at that time. I mean, at least I didn't. I don't really. The only thing I could glean from why the wolves hit the scars is because they kill each other. It's
pretty
not
much
really clear.
It's just it's us versus them.
Yeah.
It's us versus them without. Resources are tight, and yet at the same time you can just move on, but then you might run into another group who might kill you. So it's which you will find out later, that's exactly what happens. Anyway, they escape from the island. They get back to the aquarium. At this point, Abby stumbles across.
You say they. Lem and specifically Lem and Abby escape from the island, the island where all the scars are. So they're in the island. The wolves come to attack. The wolves attack the scars. There's a giant battle, and then specifically Abby and Lem escape through the sacrifice. Due to the sacrifice of Yara, they're able to get out.
Yep, and she's dead for good. No coming back for her. She gets lit up, so there's no ambiguity there. And you know what? Funnily enough, just really not a lot of thought given to her. Much like Jesse, I just don't feel like those characters grieved enough for those for those two people, Jesse and Yara. I think they both kind of went out in very similar ways. Again, both Abby and Ellie's stories very mirroring each other in a lot of ways on purpose. It's just very clear what's going on with that. But when you don't spend time on that character before or after their death too much, it's then it's the weight is lost, and it just it starts to feel senseless, but not in the way they might want you to feel it. Anyway, you stumble across Abby's dead friends, and then thankfully it's a jump cut to the theater. You don't actually have to travel all the way to the theater, which is
for once
exactly
game.
Because it's starting to you're getting to the end and it's starting to feel like
fatigued with actually playing the game, and you're at like hour 20 at this point,
right? And so it's a pretty tense moment, to just suddenly appear in front of the theater that was previously your haven, and now you have to go in and you have to kill Jesse like that. I mean, you don't do it. It happens in a cutscene, but that Abby's going to do that. And, and then basically it picks up where it left off. I don't remember exactly how it goes from there. I know she
So at that point where it picks up, Abby and Ellie do the fight. That's the fight scene we were talking about earlier, where you are Abby
right.
and you're fighting Ellie and you're trying to hide from her and Ellie's trying to kill you, and you have to... Eventually, you get on top of Ellie and you're pounding her in the face. And then Dina attacks Abby with a knife when Abby overpowers Dina. But then Ellie pleads for Dina, and she's like, she's pregnant. And Abby's like, I'm going to kill her anyway. You killed Mel. Who cares? But then Lev stops
No, it
her.
was way better than that. She's just like, stop. She's like gasping. She can barely move and breathe herself. And just don't. She's pregnant. And Abby's got the knife to Dina's throat, and she says, good. And then she's about to do it, and then Lem off to the side's like, don't. And so Abby doesn't. And I thought that was pretty weak. I'm not saying that she should, there couldn't have been some reason she didn't kill Dina, but just having little old Lem stand over there with his little bow and just kind of stop her, that was all it took. I was like, okay, that seems weird.
Right. And that's the thing is, you're going to give them another chance after you already gave them one, and they came after you and they killed your friends. And if the tables were turned, I'm pretty sure Ellie would have killed Abby.
Well, we know she would, because she goes after her again, which we'll talk about in a second. This is where I start to dislike Ellie. And I feel like
this is where I start to dislike the game, because I thought this should have been the end.
It could have been an end. It would have been a fine end, I think, if it had just been you lost, you're not going to get the vengeance you wanted, go home, and she dies. That would have been fine.
Or if they just handled that last encounter differently.
Well, right. They still could have had a similar ending as the actual ending they end up with.
Right.
And they could have done it then without doing this. So we basically get an epilogue of sorts. So that's when your time as Abby is over. And you cut to this farmhouse back in Jackson, and you've returned home with Dina. You're living with her.
It's been at least a year, because Dina has the baby, and the baby's a few months old. So
yeah, he's at least 6 months, 6 to 9 months old, judging by the way that, the size and how he's not quite walking yet and all that stuff. He's very cute. They seem to have a nice life. Everything's going mostly well, it seems. Tommy shows up at some point, and he's a real jerk to Ellie about how the fact that, because he's crippled now, Abby shoots Tommy in the head. You think Tommy's dead. This is actually the first time you realize that Tommy's not dead, but he's crippled. He can't walk well. He clearly can't travel and do combat the way he used to. He's also getting old. There's that. He's probably almost 60. And he's really mad because he's got a lead on Abby. Big girl, built like a house, built like a tank, all that kind of stuff he got from putting his feelers out. And Ellie's like, I don't know. I don't want to, but maybe she does. And then Dina yells at Tommy, and then there's a PTSD sequence in a barn where the door closes and there's wind and it's dark, and she's got the baby and she's just freaking out, and Dina finds her, and you find out that's definitely not the first time that's happened. And then basically that's kind of the moment where Ellie resolves to go ahead and finish what she's done, not because she wants revenge, but because she doesn't know what to do with herself anymore. This isn't it's not a cold blood thing, but it's certainly not heat of the moment anymore. You're so far removed. You risked everything and almost lost it all. Abby's not coming back after her. I don't think that's an actual fear. She just wants to go kill her. And so she does. She leaves her, and Dina's like, if you come back, I'm not going to be here. And she makes off for Santa Barbara, California, which is where the lead was. And then you switch back over to Abby, who's with Lem, who's also in Santa Barbara. And you're looking for more fireflies because Abby has somehow found her hope again. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But she's found her hope, and she and Lem are buddies. And again, it's The Last of Us 1 all over again.
Yeah, and I think she wants to get away from the wolves, and she wants to reunite with fireflies because she thinks they're still out there.
And they are. And she finds them via some radio in a basement somewhere, and she makes contact, and it's a really happy moment. And then she comes out, and she gets knocked out and captured by these biker dudes in chains, and they're terrible people. And it cuts again. Now you're Ellie again. And then you spend the rest of the game as Ellie. You make your way through all this stuff. You have to fight through these camps. You eventually find out these guys are called Reavers.
And
they're basically...
This is where you get into those pacing issues. Like,
oh, yeah.
Come on. At this point, I was so ready for the game to be over. I was so ready. I was just so fatigued by it. I was so like, this part of the narrative felt pointless to me. I really felt like they could have just handled that final encounter prior to the epilogue part.
Yeah. All to just have one more encounter, because that's all this really points to. Like, because like I don't find a purpose in the Reavers. Like, what's the like if your point was to show gray area, but then show an even more despicable than the Scars, because these people, they're slavers. That is literally what they're doing. They're capturing people to use for who knows what, nothing good. They actually harness. They capture like infected and use them as like weapons and guard posts and stuff. They've got them chained into their compound, and and you in what is one of the cooler moments, you can release them and cause havoc, and it's great. But it's like these people are irredeemable because they don't give it's obvious from what they're doing, but also B, if there's anything redeemable about them, you'll never get a chance to see it because like the game's about to end.
Right.
So I always just thought that was a really bizarre choice narratively.
It reminded me a little bit of the cannibals in the first game. You don't really get a sense of why. I mean, I guess scarcity, but like you don't get into the mindset of that.
Correct. Yeah, they're just bad guys for the sake of bad guys in a world where you're supposed to think. And the first game does a terrible job of this. And we talked about that in our first spoiler cast of The Last of Us, where I just thought like it couldn't have been more obvious to me that Joel is a good guy and that everybody else is just a jerk trying to do their own thing at best. It's just everybody doing their own thing at best, and at worst everyone's evil except for Joel. Anyway, Ellie sets a bunch of people free. She's like, where's Abby? And she's like, oh, she was basically a rebel rouser, and they took her and the boy, Lem that is, because he's still there too. And they sent them down to the ocean, basically to crucify them. They hang them up on poles to dehydrate. What's the word I'm looking for? Not suffocate, but dehydrate until they die.
Starve them.
Starve them. The crucifixion. That's what you do. You just hang someone up on a pole until they die.
They don't do the nail thing through the wrist.
No,
but
I mean, there's lots of different ways to crucify. Yeah. Anyway, the pretty tense and kind of harrowing moment where you go through there's a lot of them. There's a lot of poles and a lot of very obviously dead bodies and some less obviously dead, like some recent, some very old. And there's this kind of cool moment where you think you find Abby, but it's actually somebody else because of the ponytail. And it turns out Abby's like really emaciated. Her hair has been cut. So it's a very, very short, not a buzz, but just like the next step up. She lets her down. Abby, like, you're not even sure if she's registered who just did that. Like if she registered that Ellie's there, because she just makes kind of a beeline for Lem, who's even worse condition because, he's a tiny frail boy versus Abby, who had a lot of, meat, fat, and muscle and all that stuff. And even that's gone now. So she's practically on death's door. They're making for these boats. Ellie's just kind of trudging along with them.
Well, and I think Abby even says, hey, there's boats over here to Ellie.
So at this point, I think it's obvious that yes, Abby does realize it's Ellie.
Right.
Probably has no idea what she's doing here. Can't assume it's good, but she has no other recourse except to try to escape. Maybe hope for a second that Ellie felt bad and wanted to make amends, because that's where I thought this was going. I thought there was going to be a twist where she did this out of guilt for what she had done, rather than trying to finish the job. And that is not the case, because she came there to finish the job. And as they're getting in the boats, she challenges, Abby's like, you're not going anywhere. She's like, I don't want to do this. Let me leave. Let us leave. And then she doesn't. And you guys fight. And it's a slog. It's slow. Abby's obviously on death's door. And what happens?
And you're in the ocean and you're like calf deep.
Yeah. Ellie's been hurt too, though.
Yep.
Like she's been shot. Like she had there was a cinematic cutscene where she was injured, and so now she has she has a canon injury and not just the regular injuries that you get, and so she's really beat down. And yeah, like you're like waist deep in the ocean. You have a knife, but Abby doesn't, and so you're slashing and stabbing her as she does her best to try to dodge. She still gets the upper hand on you, at some point, but then you finally flip her over, and you're just shoving her into the water. And then, is that when the flashback happens?
It's gotta. Well, I don't know.
The one with the dance scene.
I don't know if it's right there or not,
or if it was before that. There's some kind of flash. It might be a really brief one. It might be the full extent of the flashback, but as she's got Abby under the water, just like 20 more seconds and she'll be done. She has a vision of Joel, and she just kind of like lets go, backs off. Abby comes up, gasping for breath. She just kind of sits there and stands there. Ellie just probably just says go, something very simple in her hoarse voice, and then they sail off and they leave. That's it. They're gone. And then Ellie just kind of sits there. In the course of the fight, Abby has bitten off 2 to 3 fingers of Ellie's hand. So she can't play guitar anymore, and that's really sad. But yeah, Ellie survives, and she's just kind of sitting there stewing in her misery. At some point, there's a flashback to the most recent event that happens with her and Joel. Again, we saw this back in E3, like 2017, where she kisses Dina, and somebody makes a comment. Joel tries to defend her and punches the guy, and she's like, I don't need your help. And that's like, you're like, oh, I guess they're not on speaking terms anymore. Ellie goes back to the farmhouse. It's completely empty. She's just a shell of her former self. She has one final flashback. It's that same night as the dance, but she is talking to Joel, and they're finally starting to kind of talk about what happened and why they're even fighting.
From the first game. What happened in the first game?
Right, where she was going to be a sacrifice for mankind, and he took that from her.
Yep.
And he basically took all her personhood, and like that's how she feels anyway. And he's like, he apologizes in so many words, but at the same time says and I'm choking up just talking about it, because I have a daughter. And it's hard to see somebody love somebody so much and want to do how could he have? And it's basically, it's like, I couldn't have, and I never would have. And if I was given the same choice, I would make the same decision every single time.
Sure.
And he's like, if you can forgive me, I hope you do, but I respect the fact that you might not be able to. And she says, I don't think I can, but I want to try.
Yeah, want to try.
Ugh. And that's the last thing they ever said to each other.
Yeah.
This is one of the last things you see in the entire game, knowing everything that they've all gone through, and it really brings everything home. And this is why I like this game way more than I might have. I think this scene is crucial. However they could have done it, if they didn't have this scene, so much context is lost as to Ellie's motivations. I still don't really like Ellie as a character comparatively to some other people. I don't love her as much as Joel. I don't even really like her as much as Abby. And I know that's sacrilege. But
I was going to say.
But this really brings it home.
Sure.
In a way that I didn't know. It's so simple. These kinds of forgiveness scenes are very powerful and very frequent, but I wasn't expecting it. It really caught me off guard.
Yeah.
It is what kept me thinking about this game for days afterward. Anyway, she ends that flashback. She's got Joel's guitar, which he gave her at the very beginning of the game. You see in another flashback, she can't play it anymore. She tries. It's a little mini game that you've been doing throughout the game where you can play the guitar, the song he taught her how to play. She can't do it anymore because she had her fingers bitten off. It's just one of the many other things that she's lost. And then she leaves the farmhouse, and that's the end of the game.
Yep. And it kind of you're in that room where Ellie's stuff is, and you're just looking at this kind of frame of the guitar out of the case sitting by the window, and out the window you can see Ellie walking off in a direction, but you don't know where she's going. You don't know. I mean, it's obvious Dina's gone. You don't know if she's going back to the settlement. You don't know where she's going.
Yeah. And it's ambiguous, but I personally think she is going at least to the settlement. And obviously Dina's still there too. Her parents are there, if I'm not mistaken. She did have them to go home to help raise her little boy. What was his name?
I don't remember
his name.
Yeah.
He was cute though. But I do think at some point, whether they reconcile or not, she's going to return to them and at least contribute as a
Sure. What
person.
else is she going to do? Like,
exactly.
Go
kill
be a
herself.
firefly? Like, yeah, what?
Yeah. And then
yeah.
the very end of the, or rather the startup screen after you beat the game. In the beginning, it's the final scene of this game, the confrontation between Abby and Ellie at the shore with the boats. That's the startup screen when you press start game. It changes to this kind of like sunny thing, and you see this dome, which is the thing that the Fireflies were supposedly at. So it implies that Lem and Abby are alive, and they got to where they wanted, and they kind of had their happy ending, as happy as it can get.
Right.
They found the Fireflies. And I'm pretty sure that's more or less confirmed. You'd have double checking on that, but I'm pretty sure.
I think it's confirmed. I want to say that they confirmed that Neil Druckmann was on a podcast with Kind of Funny, Spoilercast, with Laura Bailey, if I'm not mistaken. I think they confirmed right. that's what it was. But so what did you think of the ending overall?
I really liked it. It's bittersweet. Well, no, it's not even sweet. It's bitter. It's a bitter ending. It's a sour. It leaves just an ashen taste in your mouth, and yet it's a powerful, somber ending.
That's what I was gonna say. The one word for it, powerful.
Mm-hmm.
I think just it's the journey to get there is a little, like I said, the pacing. Like if I'm trying to do this if I'm trying to evaluate this as objectively as possible, I think it's hard to say that it's perfect,
right?
Because of the journey and the things they make you go through that just seem unnecessary.
It's not a game I'm ever going to play again either.
No.
It's like some people replay The Last of Us, and I could have not at this point in my life, but if I'd played it originally when it came out, I could have seen myself playing it 2 or 3 more times before the second one came out, just because I would have probably liked it enough and wanted to recap and stuff. But I just never gonna play this game again. I don't need to. Nope. I don't want to.
I'm glad I did. I think it was worth.
Me too.
I think it was worth. Like I bought it the day of.
Mm-hmm.
I played it for the midnight release.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed my time with it. It's just it was it took something out of you to even get through it.
It did.
And but I'm glad I did it. I thought it was really good. If you talk about video games as art, you can't not talk about these games, and that's what Naughty Dog does. And I think they did a fantastic job. And this is a fantastic game. And I think in my opinion, I think it lived up to the hype.
I agree. I like it better than the first one.
That's so weird because I feel like in a lot of ways I do, but I just feel like if you evaluate it in the time that it came out, that first game was better. But then, like, obviously the second game is better in so many ways, especially as a video game.
I have no nostalgic touchstone for it because I literally played and beat the first one this year.
Right. So anyway,
technically I started it last year, but let's see. Any final thoughts? I thought I had one. What was it? Oh, right. Just the overall, like people talk about the good and the bad and, gray and right and wrong. And like, it just doesn't exist in this world. Like this is a post, like this world, the state of society. Like I have my own morals and obviously we live in a society where we have the luxury of just, discussing these things and wanton murder is not a problem that we have to deal with, at least in America.
For now.
But but like this world doesn't have that luxury anymore. This is a post-apocalyptic, we have not rebuilt society to the point where we can start really admonishing people for doing these kinds of things. Like, sure, the Reavers and certain aspects of the Scars and the Wolves, because they're large organizations and they do have some responsibility to not be heinous, horrible, disgusting people. But the smaller individual actions of somebody simply avenging a loved one and then the other person coming back and avenging that loved one, it's an old story and you've seen it 1,000 times, but it's like by the end, I just felt sad for the characters. I felt sad for Ellie, and I felt sad for Abby. Like, I guess in a way I loved them both, and I wished it hadn't happened to them this way.
Right.
And I didn't feel that either of them had made the right choice. Certainly, because killing is wrong. Like, let's just get that out of the way. But at the same time, it's like, it's totally understandable on both sides.
Sure.
And this is a situation where you can say both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's hard for me to get to that because of how much I had more. I feel like I had more attachment to Joel and Ellie because I played that first game contemporaneous to when it came out, essentially. And so I have that nostalgia. I have that attachment. But yeah, I think I could at least say that there's an alternate reality where I could have liked Abby. It's not this one because she killed Joel.
She doesn't kill Joel. If she had killed Joel as a Firefly, I would have never come around. But she killed Joel as that man's daughter.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, yes, she was a Firefly and she wanted to go back to them. That's where she would eventually find her hope and her security and her identity, etc. But like, she killed him as that man's daughter. And you see that in their first flashback, which still kind of like, it's still too much for me. Like, even that flashback, like, they don't do a good job. It's so heavy-handed. Like, oh, I'm the only one who can do this, and I'm going to save the world with this cure. I'm like, you're not going to save Bubkiss. You got to stop people from being heinous people, and that's not going to happen. Not fast, and not because you came up with a vaccine.
Sure.
But that's a tangent.
Right. So much. It's a lot to unpack.
So much for a mini cast.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was a mini spoiler cast, and then you had to go into the plot summary. But I commend you for it. That's a full spoiler. People got their money's worth there.
There you go.
Well, man, that was a fantastically long episode. And I know that you and I both have to work tomorrow. So,
yeah.
Unless you have any other comments, I'm going to bring us home.
Bring us home, Jason.
Okay. All you out there, have a fantastic week. That's all we have for you today. We will try, but we are never free to play. Peak! Peak! Pelvic thrust! Peak!